What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and
Nelson Blake the second. Not the hardest working man in sports gaming, because that's the guy that you're talking about right here. But I'm better than him at everything else, so
oh,
it balances out.
oh, well, then look at it now. Look at us now.
How you doing today, Mazik?
I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything. I didn't say. You see, I didn't say good. I said I'm doing
He's
everything.
just doing everything.
I'm doing everything.
Good
I didn't.
comes later. Getting it
But
done comes first.
hopefully.
Life lessons brought to you by the AtMeBroShow.
Yeah, I honestly, I that has really been the mantra I've been trying to stick to for the last 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so
I thought you were gonna say the last 10, 15 years.
Nah, I work in minutes. That's probably my problem. So, how's everybody doing? I appreciate everybody jumping through. We got Tay Shakir just came in, said, "Hey, they back." I appreciate y'all waiting.
Tay Shakir, what's up, man?
We were kind of this. There's a lot to go through this week.
Big show today.
Very big show, and we were trying to make some last minute adjustments about what we're going to talk about and what we weren't. But I feel we would be remiss if we did not talk about something that, now I know it's Thursday, and this is part of the problem with our show being on Thursday, is that if we talk about anything that happened in combat sports, we like 5 days late. That's just what it is.
Which means either we get to it Saturday or we deal with this right here.
We deal with the situation.
The boxing news has been too big and over the top to not at least mention it on our Thursday show. But for future combat sports content, we will be looking at to get that to you guys when it's hot off the press and we're all still kind of emotional about what we saw. Speaking of emotional, how emotional were you when your boy Anthony Joshua got knocked to the ground a billion times?
I wasn't emotional. Like I like AJ.
Yeah.
I don't have the problem with him that like a lot of people do.
What's the problem? Well, let's get into it. What's the problem they have with him? He seems extraordinarily likable.
See, I think that's the problem because we live in 2019, and in 2019, that's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
He's not savage enough. He's not yelling out "Bomb Squad."
Well,
I want to kill 5 babies.
Right.
So he's not doing that. He's getting people that's it's the whole thing. It's so crazy how society overall has gone to this situation, almost like hip hop in the 90s or the 80s or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you ain't tough,
they don't want to. Yeah.
But then it's the other flip side, because then at the same time you can be too manly, and then somebody got something to say about that.
Then you're toxic.
You just can't live.
Yeah, I find Anthony to be really charismatic, like as an athlete. I mean, and the thing is, he's real consistent too. It's like Steph Curry. Like Steph Curry's kind of boring and milquetoast to a degree, but he's extremely consistent. So most people who are that consistent aren't disingenuous.
Right.
They're just like that, right? Like when every word and every syllable is kind of in the same vibe, that's just who he is. And why wouldn't it be? The guy is 6'6", good looking, both parents, rich, good at his job, built like a superhero.
Yeah.
Look, man, what he got to be mad about?
And and the thing of it is,
chill.
The thing of it is he got a dirty past, man. Like he went through some stuff, and overcame. But I guess people don't like how clean he came out. You know what I mean? But as far as the fight, I was surprised, but I wasn't completely shocked. I had tweeted a couple of days before the fight, I wish I had the heart to pick Andy Ruiz. That was my tweet.
See, that's the funny thing about this. This wasn't a Deontay Wilder type situation where unanimously across the board you hear, he's just gonna. It's a matter of when it happens, not if it happens. I heard a bunch of people chirping that Ruiz is a good fighter with a chance to win this fight.
Yeah,
and in fact, in all of the interviews, it was brought up: are we overlooking Ruiz? And all of the coverage that I saw.
Yeah.
So
he was.
I don't think the shock is what people made it out to be. I think I honestly, if Ruiz was cut like him, if Ruiz was jacked and not a Mexican heavyweight.
Yeah.
I'm Latino, so I can say that. But
no, I mean it's true. It's boxing. I mean, it's just like if he was a white heavyweight, most people wouldn't have given him a chance.
Yeah. Unless he was, 6'7",
If he was a
close
white
code.
American heavyweight, nobody would have gave him a chance.
American. That's
Yeah,
if he was, Russian or something like that, they'd let it slide. But no, you're right. American, it
yeah.
would be a thing. So I think it's those other factors, not the actual reality of inside the ring.
Hmm.
That having been said, what happened inside the ring? Where was you at on it?
What I felt was there definitely was something wrong with AJ. Okay, let me back up. I am taking nothing away from Andy Ruiz.
Yeah,
Andy Ruiz has extremely fast hands.
yeah,
He's probably the most deceptively athletic dude you'll ever see.
has to be.
Because he moves very well.
Yeah,
I was telling my wife, to be honest, if he was in shape, he'd be a cruiserweight.
yeah, right, because of his height and everything.
Yeah,
Like,
he would be.
yeah, yeah,
If he was in shape, he'd probably be 6'2", 6'2" and a half, 195 pounds.
yeah, yeah,
If he was in shape,
yeah.
but he's not. So but as he is, he's a very difficult fighter to deal with because he has an outstanding amateur pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
He has great hand speed, he has great footwork, and he
Mm-hmm.
can crack.
And he's got a great heart.
And he
So,
has a chin,
because
which
he
we
got beat up to the third round.
he didn't really get beat up in the first 2 rounds, but he took a hellacious shot from a
Yeah,
legitimate puncher in the
yeah,
third round. And not only did he get up off the deck, he got up off the deck with his senses and
yeah.
with his aggression maintained.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, and I said this with the Wilder Brazil fight, many guys get stung and lit up. And then immediately after they're stung and lit up, it takes them about a round to get their aggression back.
Mm-hmm.
He got his aggression back like that and drops Joshua. Now Joshua's issue was he did not fight tall.
He didn't. Okay, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Because there's two issues with this, and similar to what you said, anybody watching the show, I am not taking anything away from Ruiz. Right?
Hmm.
Ruiz is actually the maiden name on my Latino side,
Hmm.
so I'm with it. Right?
Hmm.
Congratulations. However, and on that note, it is Joshua's fault for putting himself in this situation and not
Absolutely.
fighting tall. But Ruiz hit him with an illegal back of the head punch so hard that when it happened, I was like, wow, they didn't even like address that. And I know it's a different sport. And this is Joshua's fault because you 6'6".
And you
So in
gonna hit.
order to get the back of your head over to Ruiz, that's your fault to get in that situation. But you look at it again, peripherally related. John Jones, the one L on his record, was a disqualification.
Hmm.
I watched that fight live,
Hmm.
and it was a north to south elbow of a man who was near death. Right, the fight should have been stopped 3, 4, 5 elbows before that,
Hmm.
and it wasn't a true north to south. But the point is, they disqualified him instantaneously, which we all pretty much disagree with because of the situation. However, the north to south elbow is illegal for a reason. And
I actually think that's a pretty ridiculous rule, but
I do agree with you,
yeah.
but I understand why the rule is in place.
Hmm.
And I think we can get rid of the rule, but I get why it's in place.
Hmm.
And the same thing for rabbit punches, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
illegal for a reason.
Hmm.
And when it happened, in fact, Psycho Killer from Rated Sim Nation, we were in chat. I was like, he hit him, and Muse might have heard this too. Jason Battle, he hit him in the back of the head really hard on the way down, and I'm like, that was a really really hard back of the head behind the ear hit, and we didn't
You
get
talking about on the
anything.
way down, not the initial shot that
Not the
rocked
initial shot. He rattled him first.
him. Hmm.
But I mean, like you said, that's something he could get up from and blah blah blah. But he hit him really hard with that punch. And I was saying this all night until Joshua got to the press conference and said it himself. I tried to recover from that punch. He wasn't making excuses,
Mm-mm.
but he mentioned it.
Hmm.
I could not get my bearings back before that punch. And Teddy Atlas said the same thing. Max Kellerman said the same thing. Everybody's like, yeah, that punch makes you drunk and you can't recover from it. So what are your thoughts on that? And I bring this up mostly because it wasn't addressed at all outside of the analysts way after the fact.
Yeah, I didn't put much stock in that, to be honest. Because and I take this from having watched all of AJ's professional fights.
Mm-hmm.
AJ's chinny.
Yeah.
He's chinny. And he has been. And that's not to say that the end that this spells the end of his career or this is going to be his Achilles heel forever. But AJ was legitimately rocked with that left hook to
Yes.
the point that the style that he was fighting, and because Ruiz had already proven sturdy enough to take his initial shot and wasn't showing the same effects after the punches after the initial shot that dropped him, I think that night Ruiz was going to beat him anyway. All things considered, preparedness, from a mental standpoint, there's strong rumors from people who are quoting trusted sources that says that he was dropped in sparring the same week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what it all was going on with. I think this was like a perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
Usually, when you see an upset of this magnitude in combat sports, especially boxing, it's a perfect storm. Uh, I referenced Mike Tyson against Buster Douglas. That fight was Mike Tyson has issues at home with the wife. Mike
Yeah.
Tyson hasn't been training. Mike
Mm-hmm.
Tyson got rid of all of his reputable trainers and replaced them with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting Buster Douglas, whose mother just passed away. He's in the best shape of his life. He is a skilled opponent, and he is he's fighting with this motivation from his mother just passing away. You put all that together, you have the greatest upset in boxing history.
Yeah.
So essentially you saw the same thing with Joshua
Now,
Ruiz.
do you think? But I don't think that Joshua was to the level of
No,
fight,
no, no,
and I
no.
don't think
Well,
Ruiz. I think Ruiz. He seems like he's a better talent than Buster Douglas.
no, he's not a better talent
You
than
don't think
Buster.
so?
Not a better
Okay.
talent. Buster was a heck of a talent. Buster had a very serious issue with motivation.
Well,
You
that's. I mean, all of it though. I don't just mean his fit. I mean, I clearly don't mean physical
No, well, no, but see, physically talented. Ruiz is exceptionally talented.
right? But I mean, compared to Buster Douglas is like heavyweight boxer,
Yeah,
right?
6'4", 235. But see,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Buster had a
Ruiz is like a heavyweight kitchen chef.
yeah, he
Like,
does.
he like
He
he
like
like
he gonna win. He like he
a mall
should be.
cop.
He like he should be somewhere winning chopped.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
but
We,
but I mean, Buster had all of the physical gifts.
but he didn't. But he didn't have the record. Like, what was his record when
Oh man,
was his record
Bus,
as impressive? I don't want to get a sidetrack with this, but
Buster, I would
I feel like
from
Ruiz is a better pro than Buster was at the time. I don't feel like
I
we were
don't
coming
know.
into this saying again, and you agree with this point in the beginning. Nobody was not nobody. Joshua was favored,
Mhm,
but it wasn't looked at as an unreasonable outcome. Even though I was young during the Buster Douglas fight,
mhm.
everything I heard was Mike was supposed to do what he'd always been doing and turn this guy into a Pez dispenser.
That was the case, but the thing of it was that Mike was beginning to fade a bit,
Yeah.
but
Well,
he
well, like we
hadn't.
said, he wasn't training optimally and all that stuff.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't at all. And it was. I mean, Buster had lost. He lost four
But
fights,
I'm talking about in CS, so that's already a worse record, right? Like,
but
and
it was
and I
better
don't
competition too, though.
better competition, and
Mhm.
that's why I asked you because I'm definitely not up on Buster Douglas' competition before he
Yeah,
fought Mike
it
Tyson.
was. It was better
Not my area of
competition.
expertise.
It's funny because
So
he actually beat a guy who Mike used to train, who was a great heavyweight in the '80s, Greg Page, and he
uh,
actually famously dropped Mike Tyson in in
yeah,
in sparring. So
yeah,
it's so funny how a lot of this stuff
it
connects.
all connects. Yeah.
It all connects, but I don't know. I mean, I think.
So I don't I'm with you. I think Ruiz could have won the fight either way,
Mhm,
but I still think that the rules are there for a reason, and it surprised me that that punch was basically unofficiated. There was, and it was very clear. It was very visibly obvious
mhm,
that it was a. I don't want to call it dirty. I don't think Ruiz was. I mean, Ruiz he swings kind of wild
mhm.
within his pocket, so he was just swinging, and Joshua was sticking the back of his head up in his face. But at the end of the day, that was an illegal punch. And I do think that was the reason the fight played out the way it played out. Like Joshua may have still lost another way, but I do think his account is honest that after that particular punch, he was dizzy and trying to fight the dizziness from getting hit in the place you're not supposed to hit a guy.
Yeah, I see. I don't agree with that. I think that things happen. in a boxing match, especially once a guy gets hurt and down, because this is not the only time I've seen a guy take a punch like that on their way down. Like, because the punches are, especially for a guy with good hand speed, the punches are coming so fast. So bang, bang, you're hurt. I'm coming in to finish you with combinations. You're stumbling at the same time. When I threw the punch, it was angled at a place that was going to hit you on the side of the head. But on the way down, bang, hitting the top of the head. And so we see that kind of thing. I think because this was such a high profile fight, we're analyzing every frame. But I think most fights where a guy gets dropped in that manner, punches start to go awry and hit places that they.
Oh, I don't. Like I said, I don't think it was intentional. But at the same time, again,
no, yeah, not intentional. But it's just boxing. It's just one of those things that happens. But I don't think that's played the most significant role. I think what played the most significant role in him losing is that he did not fight.
He didn't fight tall. I totally agree with you.
All
I
he had to
100%
do,
agree with that.
And this is why I believe.
And I want that to be clear in what I'm saying.
Yeah. I got you.
We on the same page with that. And honestly, I would not have brought this up. I brought it up while we was watching it. I wouldn't have brought it up on this show until Atlas and Kellerman
and
brought it up. You know what? But Joshua was a fighter. He was knocked out. If it was just the fighter saying it, I could be like, I saw it. I see what he's saying, but I'll let it go. But then when two great boxing minds jump in and they also bring it up, then I'm like, okay, why wasn't this addressed at all during the match? Because we all saw it. And it was pretty flush. It
gives some validation to Joshua's mention, because I won't say complaint, I'll say mention.
Yeah, because he wasn't making excuses.
No, he wasn't. He's a G. He is a warrior. He's not. He don't do that. People can say what they want to say about the way he looks and talks and all of this, but the dude, first of all, I never criticize another human being that gets into a ring to fight another human being. Anybody who lets the word punk or weak or anything come out of their mouth describing somebody who does that for a living, don't understand.
Yeah,
so that's the first thing.
These people criticizing Joshua, not only can you not whoop his ass, but you don't know anybody who can.
You don't know nobody that can. So I don't do that. I don't do that. But this is the reason why I believe he wins the. I believe he wins the rematch. I believe he wins the rematch because what failed him in this fight is correctable.
Yes, it is.
Essentially, what he did was the equivalent of why you tell a big man not to bring the ball down below his waist after a
100%. 100%. I don't care if it's your habit; it's gonna bite you in the butt.
It's gonna bite you in the butt because all he had to do was stay behind the jab, 1-2s, 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 flick, 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 stay tall. You don't throw the jab against a shorter man like that to stun him. You do it to maintain your distance and to control space in the fight.
Yeah.
Then what happens is
straight to four.
Right. There's going to be times where Ruiz breaks into that space. Now it's time to go Klitschko. You wrap him up. Because Ruiz's hands are faster than Joshua's. So if he allows Ruiz to operate on the inside, which is what he did, you're going to get cracked.
Well, and Joshua has to correct his head movement. So because that head movement ain't gonna work. So
it makes it harder when you're doing this.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's really, really rough. Okay, now we have obliterated our show schedule with this. I'm glad we got to talk about it. But I do have a question before we get out of here. Portia is not gonna be happy. Our producer not loving this. I hope you guys are enjoying this topic because we've sacrificed a great deal to get through it. But I do have a question.
Yeah.
Would Deontay Wilder obliterate Anthony Joshua in your opinion after seeing this fight? And that's one. And two, do you think the division is better with Ruiz's name being in there as somebody you'd like to see match up with these guys?
First, answer the first question is 100% Deontay knocks him out. And I was thinking that anyway before this fight. And I'm not even sure that. I was thinking that anyway. And this fight does kind of drive it home. It's a different looking fight because Wilder's a different type of athlete than Ruiz, a different type of fighter. He's not anywhere near as technically sound. Don't get conditioned and technically sound mixed up.
It's technique versus
because Ruiz's technique is fantastic. It's the only reason he's able to be effective and fat.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only reason.
Well,
Because if
he
he
has
was,
good cardio for a big boy.
he does well, but he didn't even have to use it that much. But he did that.
No,
When you get knocked
if you
down
punch
and
and
get back
getting
up,
punched, yeah,
yeah, you
that's
have to
vicious
use some
cardio.
cardio for that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he does great.
because they say the fastest way to lose stamina is to miss a punch.
Oh,
So
for sure, because it
for his
lays on
punch
your mind.
volume to be as high as it is, and for him to still have it be that
Hmm.
busy as a heavyweight, the guy, he's one of those guys, his body type just doesn't fit his athleticism. Sometimes the package is different. We can agree he could be in better shape.
He could.
Um, his diet just needs to be better. But at this
Charles
point,
Barkley. Charles Barkley.
yeah, yeah. But at this point, it's working for him, so he's
Yeah,
probably not going to
he ain't
change.
gonna do it. He's trying to get an endorsement with Snickers, man.
Oh Lord. All right, now we got to move on.
So I'm just telling you,
That
he ain't because
he
he was
got
doing that.
problems.
Before. He was doing that, but he have a problem. He have a problem.
All right. Well,
All right,
this
so
is not a
look,
basketball show, but basketball is our bread and butter. Should we start
yes,
getting to the NBA finals here?
yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk about Game 3.
Let's
And
do
so for all of y'all that was ripping your lips off while we talked about Ruiz and Joshua, I'm very sorry,
it.
but I just wanted to, you know, we had to talk about it a little bit. But you know what I noticed? Sometimes you start getting comments from people that you don't normally get comments from. Because my man missed the game when I appreciate your participation. But
Absolutely.
usually I don't see his name pop in that
Well,
much.
here's a good opportunity to say this before we get to basketball for the next 2 hours of the show, which we apparently still have scheduled. If you guys like our combat sports content, speak up. We have a great deal of historic followers from both Brian's original channel and my time on this on Sim Hangout, and those guys are very vocal. Those guys and girls are very vocal. But for our combat audience, that's our newer audience. If you, I know you guys are out there because some of you have reached out to me. Speak up, get your comments in, hit us with the ask us, bro, so that we know that we're not underserving you. You know.
Yeah, I really just to let y'all in on so like a behind the scenes conversation. I've actually mentioned it to Nelson that maybe we shouldn't talk about combat sports because it sometimes seems that we lose y'all's interest, and we obviously want to maintain that. So if you are enjoying the combat sports stuff, please, like Nelson said, definitely speak up and let it be known that you're enjoying the conversation because we only know what we know. So
Yeah, and we both do very much love combat sports.
yeah, I love might even be a soft word for me. So yeah, I appreciate that, Render. That's actually what I'm hoping for. He says combat sports discussions make me interested in getting into boxing and MMA. So keep it going. I
Awesome.
appreciate it. And Mr. Game Winner's also Mr. Game Winner's a pretty sharp individual. He says
Absolutely.
time and place for everything. You are, you know what?
Well,
I
I
received it. I received that,
I
Mr. Game
reserve
Winner.
my opinion to see how Mr. Gamer lands. Mr. Game Winner lands on this Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler topic. We got to
Well,
ask us,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah, for sure,
That's
for sure. But
that's how I
I
judge IQ.
received that. I received that, Mr. Game Winner. I really do. I received that. I received that. So let's talk about Game 3, though.
Let's do it
Uh, if you had to describe Game 3 in one word, what word would you use?
in one word. Okay, honestly, it was it was gutsy. It was gutsy on behalf of everybody. Steph Curry diving for loose balls, and genuine hustle, trying to scratch that game out, 47 points. Kawhi Leonard playing hobbled and still drawing contact, going for the steals at the end of games. You know what I mean? Same way, getting into trouble with that stuff. And when good trouble defensively, causing havoc. Fred Van Vliet and Kyle Lowry hitting clutch shots and being more aggressive. Serge Ibaka, six
Mm,
blocks.
mm,
Um, Quinn Cook hitting the occasional big shot. Like
mm,
a lot of guts. This is a great final so far.
mm,
Injuries aside, a very
mm,
like a lot of heart from both of these teams, and I have the utmost respect for the Golden State Warriors. And watching this series makes me just wish to all that is holy that Kevin Durant leaves the Golden State Warriors so we can see this version of the Warriors on a regular basis.
mm,
Get a decent, starting small forward in KD's place. Get some other piece to fix your depth because they have a depth situation with guys getting older. But I want to see the Splash Brothers and Draymond and some other talent make this work in a traditional fashion. I don't want to see them put their skills aside to watch Kevin Durant go one-on-one at the free throw line.
Um, I would totally agree with your single word description of this. I mean, this series, like I watched game 3 going, whoa,
Yeah.
several times just based off of these isolated individual efforts that
Yeah.
I would see, especially Steph. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, my respect level for I told my wife this today. I said, do you realize, and I think people really need to think about this, right? I use this analogy a lot of times with Grant Hill. Do you realize Steph Curry was his dad is a dude who played in the league 13, 14 years, however long he played. They got money.
Yeah.
They had money,
Yeah.
right? His dad goes into an announcing job. They got money.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry has already won 2 MVPs, multiple championships. He's been on all the All-Star teams. He's done all of this stuff. With all of those accomplishments, at the age of 30 years old, with a bad hand, all your teammates depleted, all of the ones, most of the ones of exceptional talent depleted. He still gave the effort that he gave last night when many people in the world in his situation would have been satisfied with their
And on that note,
with their accomplishments.
I couldn't help but thought, because if they would have won this game, series is over,
It's
right?
over. It's over.
But here's the interesting thing. If losing the game, it means nothing to Golden State because you always have the built-in excuse, right? Guys are hurt, which I understand that, but at the same time, Kawhi is hurt. Kyle Lowry's playing with one hand. It's just the type of injuries that Golden State have. They have guys sitting down, but they also have 5 All Stars, whereas Toronto has only one legit All Star. I know Kyle Lowry's been in a
He's
bunch
a
of All
good
Star
player,
games,
but he's
but
not a legit all
he
star.
he wouldn't be in an All Star game ever if he was in the West, or if Kyrie Irving and one or two of those other guys had been, you know, in the league and up and running before that. So, but that notwithstanding, um, the thing that occurred to me while watching this game was Steph is putting out a lot of energy.
Ooh.
Like that's a lot of energy to put out in the L. And I don't care how great you are, it's really hard to do that back to back or 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching this guy go for these plays. Thank God he didn't get any like dings or anything like that. He didn't have any collisions or hit the floor, come up from a jumper in a weird way. But he expended so much energy
Mm-hmm.
that I just couldn't help but feel this is guaranteed to be a deep series now. It's going at least 6.
Hmm.
And with Steph Curry's history, are you going to be able to be this good in game 6 or game 7 if it gets that far?
I'm honestly, bro, I don't know if he's
And
complete.
it's not going at least 6. It's going at least 5,
Yeah,
technically. But
yeah,
we
at
don't
least
believe
5.
that.
But I don't know if he can be that good in game 4. And
Right.
and I'm not. This is
Which is the
not
day after tomorrow.
right. No, it's tomorrow now. It's tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, it's not.
Right,
It's
right. It's
Friday.
tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Right, it's
Right. It's
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
It's day after tomorrow for them when they were
For
playing.
yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. So I mean, it, at the end of the day, right? We know Steph has multiple talents in terms, especially from an offensive standpoint. He's a really good finisher in the lane. I mean, his ability to beat guys off the dribble sometimes gets a little overlooked, especially now that he's gotten stronger in the upper body. Because that swipe that used to slow him down, that doesn't necessarily generate a foul, but used to slow him down, he's now kind of running through that, and that's due to the upper body strength. Even with that, the skill that he needs is to be able to knock down the deep shots. Even somebody as extraordinary as him, with the amount of energy, both mental and physical, that he's had to expend just to get his team to a 1-2 deficit. I just don't know if a jump shot shooter who and I know that's not all he is, but primarily a jump shot shooter who does so much work moving off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is a heavy ask, man. This is especially against a good defensive team.
Great defensive team. And
This
then
is
when I
a
say great
heavy
defensive team,
ask.
because Toronto has everything you need to be a great defensive team. They have the physical talent from a structural standpoint. They have the physical talent from an athletic standpoint, meaning they are not just long, but they jump, they're tall, they're
Hmm.
strong, they have
Hmm.
quick feet,
Hmm.
and they're coached well, and they take pride in their defense.
Yeah.
Def- Golden State Warriors have scored 109 points in every single game.
Hmm.
And in today's league, 109 points is basically 100. It's like 95 points in the 90s, right?
Yeah. Close.
So
I'd say I'm more inclined to say 10 points, minus 10 points in the 90s. I would take off
I
10
mean,
points.
I'm not going to quibble with that 4
Because
points.
95 is like the best. 95 back in the day, even in the 90s, 95, you was giving up 95, then you're a top. I mean, like I mean, like I would love to see in the 90s how many teams held teams to 95 points. That
I
was
mean, it depends on which 90s you're talking about.
I would say the early to mid 90s.
uh,
Because that was right before things started changing.
yeah, but and just for reference, against Portland, Golden State is throwing up 119 points, and
Oh,
Portland's a
absolutely.
bad
They
defensive
a
team,
horrible
but
defensive team. They're horrible.
Portland has suffered enough. We don't want to kill them, but they got 119 in another game against Portland. It was an overtime game, but yeah. So for them to get 109 in every single game, to not crack that at all, and I think it could go lower. But the thing
Yeah.
is, Toronto is playing with a pace too. Toronto's not slowing the game down on both ends.
Hmm.
It's one
Yeah.
thing to, you know what I'm saying? It's one thing you hold a team, like when you hold a team to under 100 points, you generally also only barely get above 100 points. But when you're putting up 123, usually the other team has 110, 115 just because of the pace of the game.
Right.
And you talked about Steph Curry's 3 pointers. That's his most important skill
Yes. Right. Exactly. That's
to
my
the
point.
team.
Hmm.
So it's a thing that he needs to do. Like, you're right, he has other skills.
Hmm.
Obviously, he's a great
Right.
free throw shooter, fantastic ball handle. I do think he lacks the off the dribble explosion, but the counter to that is because he's such a great shooter,
Yeah.
you don't give him the space you give
Exactly.
other guys, right? You
Exactly.
don't you don't play him like you play
So
even a Dame
it
Lillard.
makes him faster.
It does make him faster because of the way you're playing him. But you don't need Steph Curry going to the basket all the time. You need him to occasionally open the game up with a bunch of threes.
Hmm.
And, he's not, even in that awesome, awesome game, he only hit 6 threes,
Hmm.
which means you didn't have those bursts. And you talked about, we talked about gutsy, and you talked about those heroic plays by Steph Curry. But it was the fact that every time they got within 7 points, Toronto just came up with a clutch bucket. This is why I hate the clutch stat, because that's clutch. Even in the second quarter, when the team is trying to get you to 5 and 4 points before the quarter's over, and you push it back to 10,
Yeah.
that's a clutch bucket.
That is a clutch bucket. Yes.
That's when guys get tight.
Run stopping shots are clutch
Absolutely.
buckets.
So we don't have a legit clutch stats, a clutch stat. It is something that you just kind of have to organically eye test it at this point, because unless you've seen the game or are referencing the entirety of the game and the stakes that are involved in that game, clutch is going to oscillate. You know what I mean? Based
Well,
off of
they
that. But
have that stat, but it isn't used in the
well, no,
proper.
that's what I mean. That's why I say we don't really have a clutch stat. I know they have one. They think they have one,
No, no,
but I don't think it's adequate.
I'm saying you can find the stat that we're talking about, right? How many times do you score a bucket? Who has, like, which teams have the most buckets that stop 10-0 runs or stop 8-0 runs and things like that? Especially if you look at in the second half when that happens, where you are either preventing like they're like route preventing shots. And because you see a
But
team
that's
about to hit one of those runs.
but when I've seen the clutch stat defined, they didn't bring that data
No,
into
that's
it.
that's my point.
Oh,
They
okay.
they
Yeah.
they have it separated out
Yeah.
from that, and it should be
And
included.
and even within that, you've got regular season games. You've got regular
Oh yeah.
season games. Who's playing? What's
Hmm.
at stake? You know what I mean? Is there a
Yeah.
playoff spot on the line? How deep into the season is it? You know, like you've got all these other things that isn't really clutch. So when I talk about this is the thing that, besides the fact that Steph expended a lot of energy and that kind of is not, I don't think that was a great thing for Golden State, as wonderful as
I
it was
don't
to
either.
see.
I don't either.
I know this would have been extremely disrespectful, but if they'd have just sat him, like that's strategically, there's an argument to be made for that because it's a tough game to win, or at least you sat him early, right? Like you
Yeah.
play him, and then you're down by 15 points in the fourth quarter, and you're just like, we're gonna cut our losses right here. You see that in the regular season in an early playoff series. Sometimes you don't see that in the finals, but I think that was a bit of an L for them, and it
Hmm.
could come back to bite them. But the other thing that I think could come back to bite them is the fact that those Raptors looked really, really confident.
Hmm.
They look
Yeah.
like now they're used to being. We talked about it. The first game in the NBA Finals, particularly Fred,
Hmm.
really jittery, right?
Yeah.
Now he look real comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. I
now
mean,
he see Quinn Cook and he's like, I know what to do against him.
yeah. Yeah. I really like Quinn Cook though, man. He plays fearless
Yeah,
and he knocks down some shots off the dribble. And I really think they need to let him kind of go one on one a little bit more, just to take some pressure while they're offensively challenged like this. To take some pressure because he knocks down a couple buckets, man, and gets the crowd involved, or gets the team up, or whatever. And I think it can be. I think it'll actually be a big lift for them. Um,
I disagree. I think the Raptors defenders are too stout to intentionally have Quinn Cook go one on one.
yeah,
Like
he's gotten a
who do you want
couple.
him going one on one against? Pascal, Kawhi. Even though Kawhi is a bit diminished defensively because of his injury, um, Fred, Kyle. Ugh,
I,
I don't want
I,
Quinn Cook. I don't want to rely on Quinn Cook going against any of those guys one on one.
Well, he's made some nice buckets in some
Yeah,
isolation situations this series, and I mean, to me, when you're getting some bad looks outside of the other opportunities when Steph's not controlling the ball, I think it's worth it at the very least to try to put some pressure on the defense, and he's proven himself to be proficient enough. Rocking in that type of situation, and it's a different look when you're as depleted as the Warriors are right now. You got to do some different kinds of stuff to generate some offense. At least, even if it's just buying some time to get some guys back, maybe they steal a game because Quinn Cook goes off for 21 points.
well, you
Maybe,
talked about depleted.
Mhm.
So they're about to be less depleted with Clay coming back. I believe you and I were both on the train that we didn't think KD would play in this series.
Right.
And I think that's still on the table, particularly because if they don't win game 4, the series can get a lot shorter than they expected it to be.
Mm.
So, but what do you expect out of Clay when he plays, and what do you expect out of DeMarcus Cousins coming back based on what you've seen? And if Kevin Durant were to play in game, well, he's out for game 4, so game
Right.
5 is early as he comes back. What do you expect?
I expect from Clay for him to be more compromised on the defensive side, if anything at all.
Hmm.
But Clay is a warrior too. Clay's a warrior
Yeah.
too. But I expect for him to be more. I expect for you to see more of a drop off there than you see anywhere else. Which is a bad thing for the Warriors, especially. I mean, because as much as I would still argue if they have Durant, I think Clay's defense is more important than the offense. But without Durant, his offense is more important.
He's the only reason they won game 2.
Yeah, yeah. That stretch in the third quarter was mostly him. So but that's when I expect to see a good effort. As far as DeMarcus, I tweeted this during the game. It's actually sad to watch him right now because he's never been a great run jump athlete. But right now, literally, he can't jump over a credit card.
Well, this
Eh,
is what we were talking about from the beginning, man.
Well,
Like,
but see, here's an issue that I have though. I understand you've been hurt. I understand you've had lower body injuries. I totally get that. But there's no reason for you to be flabby.
but there is though, because when you can't do any running and you're a running athlete, right? And the
What
thing
about
is,
diet?
he could diet, but what he loses is strength, and that's his main attribute. Like he can. That's not he. Okay, here's the thing. He's a performance athlete,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I speak to this for those who don't know. I about 2 years ago was about 70 pounds heavier than I am right now, and the way that I got leaner was through a lot of research. So I've done a lot of research on this stuff, and there's a big dividing line between performance athletes and regular people. A performance athlete can drastically ruin their performance by eating a healthy but scientifically not curated diet,
Mm-hmm.
right? He could eat, chicken and veggies and look real good and just be a different person. Because even though there's a lot of literal and figurative fat on his diet, in terms of, having suboptimal things in the diet, the level of energy that he's getting from those things is what he's comfortable with and what his body's comfortable with. And in order to fix it, you have to completely tailor a healthy diet to replace it. You can't do what I did. I could just literally fast. I cannot eat for 18 hours every day. I can cut carbohydrates completely out of my diet. I can quit sugar. He can't do those things. And without knowing when he's coming back, without him having the time to recover and do this, this is something that would be like a 6-month project. How to get DeMarcus Cousins eating clean, but with the same level of energy that he had before. And to do that without cardio is virtually an impossible ask. So I think it's a situation where he will look better, but as a basketball player, he'd be way worse.
Yeah, I don't. I just he looks so heavy, and to me
But I
right now.
told you that would be the case, though.
But it's more than just it definitely is the injury, and it definitely is the off time for sure. But I also think that he could have put himself in a better position to okay, first of all, let me flip back a little bit. I think that he's done well with his situation, and I think that he's given the Warriors some quality minutes, considering.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where he's hurt them is there's been some dives to the basket where his ability to put pressure on the defense and be someone that had to be accounted for offensively, not 27 points a game, Boogie. Just you can't disrespect me and leave me, Boogie, right? His inability to have any lift at all. Like, I'm not sure he can dunk right now.
He can
Oh
dunk.
my God. I'm not sure he can dunk with somebody near him.
Well, here's the issue. Does he want to dunk? Because if you looked at him after that game, he not only had ice around the Achilles, but he was walking like he
Mhm.
was going to be different until the game starts.
Yeah.
Like those stories about NFL players, basically they can't walk, and then the game come in and they're an NFL player again, and they can't walk for 3 more days.
Mhm.
He looked like that. And
Yeah.
this is what I was talking about before the series started, where word of Boogie coming back, don't look for anything,
Yeah.
because he's a guy who he would have to completely rewrite his own history
Yeah. Yeah.
to be in
It's
decent
not a
shape.
quick fix. Not a quick fix. It's not a quick fix. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
All right. So let's bounce on because we're 5 minutes over on that, and but we'll stay
Oh,
in the what you got? You got something else?
but before we leave the overall team aspect, does your prediction change based on what's happened?
I don't know if I told you this, but I am not predicting anything else about this finals. I'm just watching it. There are
Yeah. Too many injuries.
too many variables, too many moving parts, and anything you say today could change tomorrow
Yeah.
because the circumstances are changing. So
Hmm.
I'm literally just enjoying the finals,
Yeah.
because it's in my
It's great
Gennady
finals.
Golovkin voice. It's a big drama show.
I'm in
So,
agreement. The one thing I would say is I think the Durant thing is hopes and wishes and gamesmanship,
mhm.
according to what we've seen. It looked like an extremely severe calf strain, to the point of a calf tear. And we have not seen him wear a pair of sneakers and take a jump shot.
Yeah,
So, which is the bare minimum for the beginning of your recovery. And the longer he doesn't play, the longer he hasn't played. And it's not that I don't think he can play at all 100% in the series. I do think that if they were able to extend it, it would be possible for him to maybe come back. But the idea that he would come back and be 40 points per game, Kevin Durant, is
no.
ridiculous. And the idea that he could come back and hurt the team worse by being on the court and being bad. Like the idea that he's going to automatically be better than Andre Iguodala when he comes back, I think that's ludicrous. Because if he's hurt and Andre's giving you good defense and intelligent, not necessarily playmaking, but just pulling the ball up, getting everybody in their spots, being in his spot, recovering and stuff like that. Golden State gets a long stretches where Toronto can't score. And if KD allows Toronto to score and he's not scoring the way he's doing, it's the same thing I said about Boogie. It's a net negative.
Mm-hmm. I think I think 80% Kevin Durant is good enough
Yeah,
for
I
them
don't
to
expect 80%.
for them to be better than
Yeah.
for him to help. 80% Kevin Durant is better.
Yeah, I think 75 is the baseline for him to be better,
Mm-hmm.
but he can't even take jumpers.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you this: if it is gamesmanship, they're not doing Kevin Durant any favors by dragging this on, because the more I'm again, and I hope we got to move on after this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Oklahoma City, one thing I'll say about their organization is they handle things so well when their stars are injured,
Yeah.
and this is something they protect their stars when they're injured. This is something the Bulls didn't do. And this is something I'm not sure the Warriors are doing right now with Kevin Durant, right? So when Rose tore his ACL and he came back and he was technically and not saying that Durant's medically cleared, but when Rose tore his ACL, the first one, um, he was medically cleared, but he was mentally he was not there, right? Mentally he wasn't there, and the Bulls knew it. But the Bulls kept putting out in the media he was medically cleared. He's medically cleared. He's
Mm-hmm.
cleared. And that literally snatched the covers off of him
Mm-hmm.
and made it a tougher situation for him in his own city, right? In contrast, when Russell Westbrook tore his meniscus, when Patrick Beverly put him into the scorers table and forced him to tear his meniscus, Oklahoma City took it out of his hands immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they said, he's out. He's out. He's out for the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. He's out for the rest of it,
Mm-hmm.
which totally took the pressure off of him because Dwayne Wade had just had this meniscus replacement surgery. And
Mm-hmm.
he was able to come back really quickly because he wanted
Mm-hmm.
to get back. So before fans got into debating whether or not you have it repaired, which is a longer recovery, or
Mm-hmm.
removed, which is a shorter recovery, but more likely to cause you problems down the line. Before fans could even get into that, Oklahoma City took it off the table.
And the result of that has been, compared to the Derrick Rose situation, Westbrook has been the most athletic point
Yes.
guard in NBA history since his recovery,
Yeah.
up until this season included.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's been you haven't really seen. I mean, you're seeing a drop off now, but I think it's because he's 30, not because of a knee injury.
and even that drop off is extraordinarily
He's
relative.
still more athletic than almost every single other guard that there is.
Yeah,
It probably
total
is.
package. Yeah,
If you put in the strength aspect, he probably
strength,
is.
jumping ability, and speed.
Yes, he's
It's
probably is the most
still,
athletic guy.
yeah,
You know. So, but the Warriors right now, with every game still leaving this door open for Kevin Durant, to me, I would be more. I think that they should say Steve Kerr should come out and say he's not playing this series. Now, if you think there is a chance that he can play, you go through the proper channels with the league to keep
yeah.
him active, and then you allow him to surprise people.
And your story is you're putting his health above everything else. Kevin's going to
Exactly.
have a long career. I think he's going to be in a lot more finals than this one.
Yes.
We're not going to risk his future.
Yes.
And blah blah blah. And we're just going to protect him at all costs. And if the doctors tell us that he can go sooner than we think, then fine. But until then, keep him out your mouths. He's
Yeah,
hurt.
I wouldn't even tell them that. I would say he's out.
Yeah.
Because Steve Kerr saying he's out is not official, but the world is going to take it as that.
Yeah. And Steve Kerr's done the opposite. He talked
Yes.
about KD coming back when anybody who could put two eyes on him is like, no way. Look at him.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
literally limping around in flip flops. What are you talking? This is the NBA Finals, and he's being guarded by Kawhi Leonard and Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I think you take the pressure off the player there, and I don't think that they're doing that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing that. So, all right. So let's move on, and let's talk about a debate. Now, I've been doing some mingling
Mm-hmm.
in some NBA social media circles, right? And I've been looking. I have never been a big Instagram person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the more I'm dabbling into Instagram, I'm finding there are some there are some accounts out there that I legitimately find interesting. You know, and I've been seeing a lot of them. There are a lot of them that are dedicated to like these debates and opinions and this, that sort of thing. So one of them is like NBA opinions, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
couple other ones out there. I'll probably have them mentioned in the description because I want to give them credit for the stuff that they've kind of put the battery in my back. But they have had one question on one of the accounts that says, "Is Kawhi Leonard better than LeBron?" And I think that 2 or 3 years ago, you asked this question. I think the answer would be super quick. To now, I think it might be a little slower. So I want to know what you think about that. Just really simple question.
Yeah. No. Next topic. No. So no. Here's so the thing that complicates this question a little bit
Mhm,
is LeBron missed the playoffs for the first time after being in the finals every year since 1977.
mhm.
So so we don't get to see LeBron in the playoffs. And for the past few years, LeBron has just kind of coasted in the regular season and turned it on in the playoffs. In any year since the Cavs won the championship, you could say that in the regular season, LeBron James was not the best player.
Mhm,
Easily, right?
mhm.
He hasn't won the MVP since then, right?
Right.
So so that's the thing. And so that's what we're comparing it to. And we're also saying LeBron is not just 34, but he's played 100 million games. So, being in the finals all the time also takes its toll. Now, he is the most gifted athlete I've personally ever seen play a sport.
Mhm,
So, he might have a longer shelf life, and he's doing what he needs to do to play deep into the season. It's not just straight out decline, because his run through the Eastern Conference last year was bananas offensively.
mhm.
I mean, crazy, right? Like, so the stuff that you see him doing. Like, if the offensive LeBron James could somehow drag up the Miami Heat defense, LeBron James, he's the
Mhm.
best player of all time to me.
Man, the Miami Heat LeBron James is arguably as good as any basketball player has ever been.
I mean, I definitely easily take Jordan over him,
I mean,
but
it's in this that pocket. I
at
think
least I can entertain the discussion.
yeah,
I do.
Mike had a longer time period of being that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like Mike, you can
But
look at
here's the thing.
7 years in a row and say that about Mike.
I
Literally.
don't think Mike would have taken the L's that LeBron took while he was with the Miami Heat. And I include in those L's having to have Ray Allen hit like a super duper clutch
Who?
shot.
Who?
Ray
Who?
Allen. Ray
Who?
Allen, the role player Ray Allen. Right?
Oh, oh, oh.
That's right. In the playoffs, he's a role player. So role player Ray,
Oh,
came
now
in,
you giving him another name?
hit a great shot. I'm talking about a different guy. You talking about regular Ray, which role player Ray don't. We would never compare him to Kobe Bryant. Our show has too much integrity for that. Long story short, though, to get to the point at hand, uh, Kawhi Leonard has not yet put together an entire playoff run equal to LeBron's last playoff run, in my opinion. I think Kawhi's been great. But the other thing about Kawhi is that he has not yet fully recovered from his leg injury. Tendonitis has flared up for him in his knee and quad area, and has clearly limited him, especially defensively. Defensively, he looks like a different person. He's still an above average defender, but he was one of the best defenders I've ever seen in my life
Yeah.
when he's healthy.
Mhm,
Now he's a good defender. Now he's like Pascal Siakam, right?
mhm.
Who's a good defender, but it is what it is. Um, so I mean, LeBron, part of what has made him amazing is that he goes through the entire playoffs just like a machine, doing everything. So, and based off that, I would say not based off what we've seen. Now, if LeBron comes back in a version of himself that's lesser than what he's ever been, then on that date at 35 years old versus Kawhi's, I guess he'd be like 28 or something like that, then Kawhi Leonard will be better on that date. But comparing Kawhi's current playoff performance to LeBron James last playoff performance. No, if LeBron James was on this if LeBron James of last year was on this Toronto Raptors team, I think the Golden State Warriors are in just a little bit more trouble than they are now.
Yeah, it's 3-0.
Yeah,
It's 3-0.
even though, no, I will leave it there. I will leave it there because Toronto has enough shooters and they don't really have a whole lot of playmakers. So Toronto's actually, ironically, the ideal team for LeBron to
They're
win.
great for. Oh my God, they would be
They play,
fantastic for
and
LeBron right now.
and he could ball hog a little bit. What?
Yeah, they would be fantastic for LeBron right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay, my answer to this is absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. He's not better. And one of the reasons that, in my opinion, Kawhi Leonard does one thing better than LeBron. He's a better defender.
I disagree with that, but continue.
Yeah, I think he's a better defender. I think that's the only at this stage in their careers.
Okay,
It's
so
not.
here's two things I would say Kawhi does better than LeBron. Well, three actually. He's a much better free throw shooter.
Oh,
That's
well,
huge.
okay, absolutely,
That's
100,
huge.
100%, 100%,
Right, because
100%.
literally LeBron might have two more championships if he was a better. If he was the free throw shooter Kawhi Leonard is, right?
I don't know. I don't
In
know if
addition
I
to
say
everything else.
that. I don't know that he's cost the team a championship with his free throw shooting.
Well, he cost the team the championship by not being aggressive in the fourth quarter against Dallas for an entire series, and he wasn't aggressive because he didn't want to shoot free throws partially.
I don't know. I don't know if I can go with that. That's why I definitely that first series against Dallas, them not winning, I think is on him. I
Yeah.
do think
Well,
that's on him.
okay. Not to get too into the weeds of that,
Yeah.
but to the other things that Kawhi does better, I think Kawhi is a better 3-point shooter than LeBron James. I think Kawhi is better as a catch and shoot 3-point shooter than LeBron. And particularly, and it's funny that you should say this now, Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown just put out a video where he said almost word for word, I tweeted this out earlier. What I've been saying on the show is that Kawhi Leonard possesses the extremely unique, and when I say unique, I don't know if anybody else could do this as a perimeter
Nobody.
player,
Nobody.
to go from elite role player,
Yep.
a
Nobody.
guy who's just going to defend, come off screens, catch and shoot, to an elite Kobe, LeBron, Jordan level go-to guy. I've never seen that in my entire life of watching basketball.
Maybe Ray Allen.
Which Ray? regular Ray did have that, but in the playoffs, Kawhi is the only guy I've seen who's been able to do that consistently, and that is an incredible skill. If it's such an incredible skill that I think we don't even count it as a skill because no one's played like that before.
Mm-hmm.
No one's, and that's crazy to allow guys like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet to legitimately cook while you're on the floor and contributing. And then when those guys sit down and, Powell and Danny Green is back in, you just take over the offense. Or when the game is tight, you just take over the offense and get free throws and get a bucket. I've never seen that before. And LeBron James definitely does not have that off the ball skill set that Kawhi has.
Now, I hear what you're saying from a pure shooting percentage standpoint, that he's a better shoot 3-point shooter than LeBron. They're very different players, of course, but LeBron does so many things with the ball that there's a huge gap in passing. Kawhi, ginormous gap in passing. Like,
yeah.
Kawhi is borderline a bad passer. Borderline. At best, he's an average passer.
I will go with average passer.
Yeah, at best, he holds
Kawhi
the ball
has been
too freaking long, especially when he's being trapped.
He's been a bad passer, and he does sometimes miss stuff, but I think he has improved in that category and has shown the ability to improve in that category. And if we're judging him right now on this run, he's not a bad passer.
I've seen
LeBron, but LeBron is possibly,
the greatest passing forward to ever live.
Exactly, which is not even close. Like, right. Kawhi is not even Grant Hill.
See, I don't think that there is a gap between the two, besides maybe free throw shooting, that is as significant as the gap between them two in passing.
Oh, I would disagree with that, with the off ball thing. And it's not just off ball. It's his ability to be a role player. Because what this allows is this
See,
allows.
I don't know. I don't.
Let me just finish the point.
Mhm.
Nick Nurse is a first-year head coach, and Kawhi Leonard is coming from an entirely different system in San Antonio to this system in Toronto, along
Mhm.
with Danny Green,
Mhm.
and missing 22 games.
Mhm.
This offense looks like it's been in place for 5 years.
Mhm.
And I think Kawhi's malleability is greatly to do with that. And if you look across the pond at Kyrie Irving, his that's the skill that he does not possess that causes a clash with him and Brad Stevens. And I think LeBron James has that same situation, which is why even temporarily it doesn't work with Luke Walton because they need two different teams. They need a LeBron coach and they need a coach for everybody else. And so when LeBron is playing, it's LeBron ball. And then when the other Lakers come in, it's this other team that'll win you 35 games with them playing Walton ball. And with Kawhi, he changes shape like a puzzle piece to any system that he's placed in because of specifically the ability to do all of those other things. And it's not just cutting, it's all of the skills involved. The catching and shooting, the way, the patience in his finishing. LeBron is a bulldozer finisher. Kawhi dribble in the lane like a 2K league player.
And
Just
and
fake
come
passing,
very
fake
close.
shooting.
Can come very close to 3-second calls a lot.
Maybe a little past the border, but we
A
we
a
don't
little bit bad,
we
because
ain't, we ain't
he
worried
had
about
a
that
play.
right now.
He had a play in game 3. I'd say, whoa, that's about 5 seconds right there. I
Hey,
say he
look,
been there for a
before
minute.
we get to Kawhi's 3 seconds, we gotta address Steph Curry and carrying the ball up
Oh
above his
he led the league in rushing on
flying
that
a
play.
kite.
He led the league in rushing on that play. But but I think to judge LeBron because of the impact player that he is, to judge him like almost like skill for skill, is minimizing his overall impact. I think it kind of oversimplifies his overall impact. I think the way that Kawhi plays is great, but I also think that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because the fact that he will step back and let Kyle Lowry do his thing, step back and let this person do his thing. I know Kawhi definitely has a takeover gene. He will do it so he's not going to sit there and watch somebody else sink the ship. If he needs to ball dominate, he will do it. We've seen him do it in this postseason. We've seen him do it. But there is also something to be said for a guy who literally takes it all. And it's not that LeBron won't let anybody cook. The thing about LeBron, and some people may say call it a problem, LeBron has to respect you, and he has to have you in high regard in terms of allowing you to do your thing off the dribble. And to be totally honest, I can only think of 2 teammates that he's ever had that he respected on that level, that he would allow them to do their thing. And that's Dwayne Wade and Kyrie Irving. Everybody else, you got to
Mhm.
get it from me.
But see, and that's the thing though, because Kawhi Leonard lets anybody be hot because he's not just doing, okay, your turn, you do your thing. He is committing to the system and has the skills to do so. He was taught. I mean, I think it does make a big difference that he was taught by Greg Popovich how to do this. He was taught as a system player his first few years in the league, and I don't think LeBron has that particular skill set, and he's never shown it. So I don't think it's really arguable that he can be an excellent system role player. I think that would be something that he would have to learn. And to date, that's something I greatly put in Kawhi's favor. And I think that's a reason, one of the main reasons the Raptors are in the finals. Because as great as Kawhi is at taking over, he doesn't have to take over when the system's working. He only has to take over when the system's not working. And that's superstar paradise. LeBron James is the system,
Yeah.
right? Kobe, that's something that Kobe got better at as time went on, to be a triangle offense guy in the first half and then be Kobe in the second half. And he talks at length about that. I don't think LeBron has had to do that because of how much success he's had in the Eastern Conference. And because of that success, he has not up to this point, and we'll see what happens with Frank Vogel, had a coach that has drawn a line in the sand and said, I will get fired if you don't run my offense.
Yeah. But so I've been saying that all year to you. I have been
Yeah.
saying that all year, that is what LeBron needs. But it's so funny. Like, I had a conversation with somebody today at the gym who happens to be a 10, 11 year NBA vet, played with LeBron,
Okay.
spent years with him, right? And we talked literally for about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, nothing but basketball. Him talking about LeBron, him talking about all these different players, and the LeBron, and this is the reason partially why I felt this way anyway, but this is the reason partially why I say we can look at it and go, oh, Kawhi Leonard is a better free throw shooter, percentage wise. Kawhi Leonard is a better 3-point shooter percentage wise, and say, oh, well, those two categories that seem to be in Kawhi's favor. Oh, but LeBron's a better passer. Athletically, I think they're about the same right now. LeBron might still be a
Oh,
better
right now,
athlete,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think LeBron's probably a better athlete still now.
It's rare because
It's close, but at one point it wouldn't be close at all. But
yeah,
right now, I think it's close.
it's
I still think LeBron has more lift
well, what
than.
it is. See, the lift is like is relative, and the thing about it is, in terms of the importance of it, it's relative to the skills that you're applying it to. And with Kawhi, you have to take into account the way he's strong is different than LeBron. His hand size,
Hand size is
his
big.
and his reaction time, his hand speed is insane compared to current LeBron on the defensive end. Some of
See,
those are athletic gifts. Like there's this one play this year, I'm sure you've seen it,
yeah, the with the
where
stuff behind that ridiculous steal.
like he did some 2K AI move.
That was ridiculous. I mean, it's one of the greatest like regular season defensive plays I've ever seen.
Yeah. So and Kawhi routinely makes defensive plays like that, where he seems to be on the opposite side of the court, and all of a sudden his giant baseball glove hand is in the
But
passing lane. And
but
that those are athletic gifts that we don't necessarily describe accurately. But on the defensive end, LeBron actually seems to be it seems that his bad back and especially now post groin injury, I
I
haven't
don't
seen him perform that way on the defensive end to put him in the same category as
I
Kawhi.
don't think that LeBron is incapable of doing these things anymore. I think he is unwilling to do them in the regular season, especially for a team that he has already decided is not a playoff team or it's
Well,
not a
yeah,
championship team.
I can
Now,
I can feel that.
I'm
And
not saying that that's the right approach. I'm not saying that, right? Because I have said on multiple occasions that LeBron is a great winner and a very bad loser. Very bad loser. When things are not going the right way, he's not the kind of guy and I love LeBron, but he's not the kind of guy that I would want on my team when things are going down.
yeah,
He is like the worst kind of teammate to have when things are going down. And I love the dude, but that's true. But LeBron is capable still of doing these things. He just has decided LeBron is too smart for his own good, to be honest. He really is. Because he sits up and he looks and he assesses this thing. Because the dude is a basketball savant. He
hmm
is. He looks and he goes, yeah, we don't got it. We don't got it. And that dictates his effort. And that's not cool.
and I agree with you within a LeBron James context. But in comparison to Kawhi, I haven't seen LeBron defensively be at Kawhi's level, even just from a raw athletic perspective, like his reacting to stuff on the
You talking
court.
about ever?
No, I'm talking about in the last
Oh,
2 or 3 years.
absolutely. Well,
That's what
100%.
that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
like when we compare athleticism, it's like in terms of running, LeBron's probably still a faster sprinter
I
than
think he's
Kawhi.
faster sprinter. I think he
He's
jumps
still a
higher.
higher jumper, but
I think they're equally as strong. I think LeBron's probably still stronger.
it's different ways though. Different ways because Kawhi seems to have that. Man, we used to have a word for this that I can't use anymore in
Rome.
our
Oh.
politically correct climate. But let's just say it's special strength, right? Kawhi has special strength that
Right.
you don't see it on his frame, but when he goes to move you out the way, or when you go to move him, you say he's harder to move than LeBron. Like
Well,
if LeBron is
grown
coming
man. It's
at
called like
me,
grown. We called it grown man strength too.
okay,
You
we were
know.
less polite in New York then. Chats and Joy, I'm glad y'all like that. But point being, there's a uniqueness to Kawhi's athleticism that I would say they're probably roughly equal. That on the basketball court, the athletic gifts are probably roughly the same. But when you combine the fact that Kawhi is able to play hard for the entire game, and LeBron, I'm not sure if he's able to play hard on both ends the entire game anymore.
I think he can. I think he decides not to. I think like we're gonna talk about this, but I really want to incorporate getting this. I don't even want to say his name yet until I talk to you about it, because I talked to
Okay.
him today
I
about
can't wait to hear more about it.
actually letting him come in and talk to us
Okay.
at some point, because the information is gold,
Yeah.
and his delivery of the information, even if you don't agree, his delivery of the information is absolute gold. So we'll talk about it. But
Okay.
The conversation today about LeBron was literally hilarious, mind blowing, just really good stuff.
You tell me some stuff after the show?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. But I don't want to throw it out there until I've checked all the boxes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man.
Our official assessment is LeBron James. I think for me, LeBron's playmaking is just too much, and his ability to take over an entire game is just too much to compare to what Kawhi's done so far. I think we're looking at Kawhi's very best moments and saying that's better than LeBron. I think if you compare Kawhi to the Kobe archetype, he compares more favorably to Kobe than LeBron does in terms of hitting difficult shots at the end of the game and shooting clutch free throws to close it out. Kawhi's better at that.
Right.
But LeBron's basically better at everything else offensively. And the passing is too much of a thing to ignore.
Yes.
So I wouldn't put him there yet. But if Kawhi puts together more years like this, then, we'll start having to talk about that.
It's funny. Here's how you really know that Kawhi is not better than LeBron. LeBron just is coming off a season. He averaged like 27, 8, and 7.
Yeah.
And we're literally talking about him like he should probably consider retirement.
I think, I know.
And when I say we, I'm not talking about you and I. I'm talking about a lot of people are like so down on LeBron right now because they don't realize that they literally are grading him on a different scale. They're not even conscious that they're doing it.
I'm with you.
They're grading him on a different scale.
They're looking at him like Michael Jordan and Kobe.
Yes, it's like you're grading him like they're looking for a reason to knock him off of the perch.
Well, when I say like Michael and Kobe, I mean literally those are the only two players they compare him to.
Because everybody else is a silly comparison.
Right. That's the scale. It's Michael, Kobe, LeBron, the rest of the NBA history.
Everybody else. Right. So okay. All right. So let's bounce to we still in the finals, y'all.
Damn, I have a guess to who it was that you were talking to. And I don't want to say it on the air.
I bet you couldn't guess in a million years.
In a million years?
In a million years, I don't think you could guess. I don't think you could guess.
So can I throw one guess out there now?
If that's who it is, I'll tell you.
All right. So it don't rhyme with Roniel Farshall, does it?
No.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I think I know what you're talking about.
Daniel
Marshall. Oh, well, he ain't. See, now you got to remember, I'm in Indiana, Chicago.
Yeah, I know. All right. So, I was trying to think of guys who's from Chicago. Oh, it's not Mo. No, because Mo Pete didn't play with LeBron.
No,
he's
from. There is no way in the world.
So is it a deep bench guy?
At one point in his career, I'll tell you this. At one point in his career, he played a significant reserve role for a championship team.
Okay.
So he has a ring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah. It's just it was fantastic. It was just great, right? I don't spend an hour and a half talking to nobody at the gym. Okay. So I had already played 3 games, and he's there with his son, working his son out.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation. So it's dope, but we'll get back to it. I put it like this. I feel if you're down, I'm about 95% sure he's down.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So
that'd be awesome.
All right. So let's go to the next topic. Kyle Lowry and fans who are part owners and people getting pushed.
Yes.
What is like? Let me tell you. Like, cause let me start this particular one off. The first time when it happened, I actually thought that um I was I was in the same boat with Jeff Van Gundy. Because Jeff Van Gundy said, you know, a 200-pound guy comes flying at me, I'm gonna push him too to protect myself. But my eyes were on the wrong fan.
Uh-huh.
The person who pushed him wasn't even the guy he ran into.
Right.
It was the dude sitting next to him. And not until I saw the reverse angle on ESPN later did I actually see what happened. And I'm like, yeah, that guy is insane.
It's
Like,
funny you should say that because when Jeff said that, I was like, I've never seen Jeff Van Gundy put his foot in his mouth that deep,
but
and
I
he
think he
said some
didn't see
crazy
it.
stuff.
I think he did not see it.
It was
I think he
still
saw what I saw.
in the context of what, and maybe that's why you don't speak that soon when somebody's saying someone assaulted me.
Yeah, true,
Maybe you don't pop off when somebody said he put his hands on me. Maybe you
true.
say, "Did he? What'd he do?"
Yeah.
Maybe that's the first thing, and then you see what he did, and then you have an opinion. You
Yeah,
know, that's
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 true.
why I think it was his foot in his mouth because it's irresponsible. If someone says that somebody else put their hands on him,
Right.
you see what happened, and then you make a judgment. You don't make a snap judgment based on what you think might have happened.
Yeah. And I honestly think that Kyle Lowry deserves a lot of credit for restraint
Extraordinary amount of credit.
because you're in
That's
the
the best possible scenario.
yeah, you're in a situation where your adrenaline's pumping because you're competing. You're on the road already, so there's already some piece of adversarial type of a thing that you got going on. Um, M7 just said in the chat that fans lucky that Kyle Lowry is not Vernon Maxwell. You are absolutely correct because if that was Vernon Maxwell, we'd still be getting Vernon Maxwell's foot off this dude's neck. I'm telling you, it would be going down. You
There's a
know,
lot of guys.
it's especially Vernon Maxwell. Vernon Maxwell is insane. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you, he don't play them kind of games. He don't play them kind of games. So that was extraordinary restraint on his part. A lot of people are saying that. So the guy got fined 500,000. He's a part owner, a minority owner
Mm-hmm.
of the Warriors. He got fined $500,000 and he got banned from games for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are saying that is a light punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are implying that he should not even be a part of the NBA at all. He should have his ownership stripped from him. Give him back his shares. You know what I'm saying? Um, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I would like you to convince me.
Okay, so the number one thing overall is the what Kyle Lowry did was a borderline superhuman act because every instinct in you, when someone, especially when you're in an emotional moment at work, performing at work. I don't know how many people like have ever performed. I was with a band. We weren't the biggest band in the world, but we played in front of hundreds of people and sometimes thousands of people. So I know what it's like to perform in front of a large crowd, and that takes a lot of energy and focus, and he's doing it competitively. So there's a win loss on there. And someone outside of that comes and pushes you while you're already in an emotional state. He's not sitting down, you know, head on his shoulders, having lunch or, doing his taxes. He's in an extremely heightened emotional state. And this person puts their hands on you, it is the most natural and frankly appropriate response to put your hands right back on them, especially when, as Steven Jackson said, the fight is rigged. In no way that man can survive a fight against Kyle Lowry. So all you doing is it's just a process. A 1, 2, 3. You ain't doing that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So for Kyle Lowry to not only not respond, but to appeal to the referees, elocute what happened, emphasize what happened. So he did what he did his part, which was to appeal to the authorities. And then he went back and did his job and did it very well. And then after the fact, did not slander the guy or the fans or, even later after he found out the Warriors organization, he kept it to that guy. Kyle Lowry gets an A+ grade on his performance. Now it's up to the NBA. If you expect these people to be superhuman in their response to adversity, then you are saying you don't protect yourself, we'll protect you. And now the burden is on you to show that this is without beyond a shadow of a doubt zero tolerance. If you can kick that racist in Utah out for saying racist things to Russell Westbrook, you definitely have to strip this owner of all, you know, responsibilities and entitlements with the NBA that he could possibly have. He is to be disassociated. I don't even want you buying a jersey from Modell's. You are done. You done.
Oh, I don't want you buying no jersey. No, put it down. Put jersey down. Put jersey down, homie. You don't get it.
And I think that's the NBA's responsibility. Not only just if we keep it to those two individuals, just if nothing, if there was no possibility of that extending beyond that, that's one thing. But this is also a forest fire situation where that guy lit a match in a dry forest and it just didn't happen to ignite. The NBA has been trying to prevent the malice in the palace from repeating itself for a long time. And the way you do it is without prejudice, completely destroying any threats to the safety and sanctity of the players and the crowd and the refs and the coaches and the security. If someone's out of, they need to know that there are severe consequences for misbehaving at an NBA event. Now, here's the thing.
Tim Hamer said, "Dang, Brooks, can he still buy 2K?"
No.
No. And
he can.
You can't
he's
play
only
with the
allowed.
Warriors.
No, he's only allowed to play my team.
Right.
So the thing is, this guy was an employee basically. He works with and for the NBA. This is the same thing that if Kyle Lowry had pushed a ref into the stands. You know, it's inexcusable. And so he needs to be held to the same standard as the players, the coaches, and the refs. And y'all don't cross that line and start touching people and putting your hands on them. And as a person who was acting as an audience member in that capacity, he not only had the responsibility of the audience member, he had the responsibility to actually represent the NBA, not just himself. So he gets both levels of, reprimand. And I think in this case, just stripping him of his ability to go to an NBA game and not own an NBA team for, frankly, getting away with misdemeanor assault is best case scenario for him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would agree.
Mike Smith wrote, "Nah, he got to buy live."
He got about live. That's it. You doom the subpar animations. I would agree. I would agree. I think that you do have to when you want to set a precedence, like you said, you have to make an example of people. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. You absolutely have to. It's kind of like, and obviously we're not talking about children, but it's kind of like in a classroom, right? And you notice you're the teacher, and you notice that you got a generally disorderly class. Like maybe you got 4 or 5 people who are the lightning rods for sending the class up, and they do their thing, and everybody goes up. If you want to get control of that class, you have to levy serious punishments on the offenders so that the pretenders and the second class people, the people who will come after the more aggressively misbehaving people, will see that and go, I don't want that smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that smoke. So essentially, that's the exact same thing. If you want to discourage fans from doing certain types of things with players, if you want to discourage players from doing certain types of things with fans, when we get these types of situations, it's got to be smashed. And so, because here's the thing, you don't want it to ever be to the point where a fan puts themselves in a different situation. And what I mean by that is this guy seems like more than a fan to most people, right? The moment they say, oh, well, he's a majority owner, or he's a minority owner, a fan might go, oh, well, what subconsciously they might say, oh, he's different than me. He's on a different that. If you can find somebody $500,000, it's probably because they got it.
Yeah, of course. That the number was definitely based on his bank account.
Right.
And
he got it. So,
here's the thing. I don't think there's a number that's fair. I don't care if he was fined 500,000 or
No, it
500
don't
million.
matter. That's not
It's
the point.
irrelevant
That's not the point.
because he put his hands on somebody,
Right. That's not the
and
point.
this is about assault.
Yeah, that's not the
And
point. Yeah, the
yeah,
money is not the point. The access is the point.
yeah,
And that's what
exactly.
you
It's your
remove.
ability to do this,
Yeah,
100%.
right.
And the thing is, if Kyle Lowry is not expected to respond, and security is going to stop Kyle Lowry if he hits the guy back, but the guy is in any capacity able to get away with touching Kyle Lowry, that is institutional bullying.
Mm.
And the NBA cannot put themselves in that situation. And quite frankly, the Players Association is not going to let them get away with it. This guy's gone. I think this guy's done. Because the Players Association is not going to let owners be putting their hands on players. Especially, I mean, you saw LeBron went on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, tweeted about it. Danny Green's already popping off.
Yeah.
And even Steph Curry, who was, golden boy, going to say the right thing, you could tell he wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
And the players are not cool with this. You don't get
Yeah.
to put your hands on the player. I mean, it's worse when you own the team to put your
Yeah.
hands on the players. These fans might just be drunk. You own
Mm.
the team. It's
It's
not too much to ask.
it's actually pretty funny though, because for Steph Curry, because it's obviously a different type of situation. But Steph Curry is also the guy who took his mouthpiece out, threw it into the stands, and hit the minority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's actually pretty funny.
Right,
But
right.
definitely an accident, and no
Yeah.
malice was involved. It was more of a momentary lack of self-control.
Oh, I would
But
say
yeah,
you don't take nothing out your mouth and throw it nowhere.
bro, let me tell you something. The first really successful article I ever wrote for Forbes, the title of the article was Steph Curry should be suspended for the finals for his actions in whatever game that was he threw it. And it blew up because people was like, what?
How you crazy, right?
And my whole point was, on what job can you get upset, take something out of your mouth, throw it and hit a customer with it, and keep your job?
Absolutely. Oh, hit a company owner or something like that.
A coworker, whatever,
Right. And here's the other thing: as a human being, if somebody took something out their mouth and
and
threw
threw it
it,
at you and hit you.
then you go see the absolute worst possible side of me.
Yeah.
You're gonna meet the side of me that's only good at one thing and is terrible at everything else.
I'm telling you, it's real. It's real. So, but the last thing I want to say about the Kyle Lowry thing is this.
Yeah.
I think that Kyle Lowry's reactions were not only appropriate, but they were very important, because in today's society, where African American males get often painted as aggressors and ultra violent characters, for there to be an absolute flip of the result, of the situation, of the roles, as it would apply to the general stereotype, right? So now you have an old white man.
Why is my cat in the frame?
Right, you have an old
Ridiculous.
white man pushing a younger African American man, and the
Right.
African American man showing the restraint
Yeah.
and the civility to not retaliate, and to respond appropriately, and to be like, and to not do anything in response that made people forget
Yeah.
about the initial act. Because here's the thing: when you're in a position of power from a physical standpoint, somebody can do something wrong to you, but your reaction to it causes such a gross result
Yeah.
that everybody
They
forgets
look.
about what was done to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, this man pushed you like this, but you said "Bah!" and
Right.
now
And
you
now that's
collapsed the whole left side of Mr. Stevens's face. And
absolutely.
now nobody's talking about the fact that you got pushed. Everybody's talking about the fact that you just broke this 65-year-old man's face.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't do that.
Right.
He handled it the right way, and he kept all of the blood on the hands of the person who actually
Well,
was wrong.
he handled it the superhuman way. I still say, in terms of the right way, maybe it's just the way I was brought up. But if
Oh,
somebody
I was
puts,
brought up that way too. You touch me,
yeah,
I get
like
to hit
the right way,
you.
Now is my turn. Is the right way.
Right.
Are you done? Because now I get to
Right.
go.
No, but I do think there is something to be said for having um
Oh, stellar.
having,
He's a
yeah,
he's a
like that.
model.
I
Like
think
he
I
should be
actually do
celebrated.
think I actually
Yeah.
do think what he did was right.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I think what he did was right. Because he wasn't in any actual physical danger. He was disrespected. And there's a difference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you're in physical danger and that's what it means, protecting yourself, right? So if he had hit that guy back, it wouldn't have been because he was protecting himself. It would be because you pissed me off and you deserve this. That would have been what it was. Because
It depends because there's an old thinking, and this is admittedly old cowboy thinking, which evolved into like hood thinking. But it's the thing of if you let them get away with this, then they're gonna think it's okay, and they're gonna do it again, and then it's gonna escalate from there. So you got to stamp it out when it happens, and that's the nature of overcompensated retaliation comes from.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's the same thing we're talking about with the NBA. Now, the one thing I disagree with the teacher analogy, even though generally I agree,
mhm,
is the teacher might over punish for the crime to make an example. Whereas in this situation, I think whatever, like him being completely dismissed from all NBA activities is appropriate. I
yeah,
think that's not an example. That's what happens. As an owner, it's totally okay for you to feel that if you put your hands on a player, you're done.
yes, no,
No
yeah,
problem,
right,
hands clapped, right? So, and and if that's not necessarily over retaliation. If Kyle Lowry would have hit that dude with a Shoryuken and a hurricane kick, that would be over retaliation because, like you said, you got a 6 foot, 190 pound, young man in the prime of his life versus a 60-some-year-old guy who looked like he ain't lift nothing and heavy in a while.
right.
So are you in danger right now? No,
No.
but you're not protecting yourself from that action. You're protecting yourself from people feeling like you're the one to steal on.
Yeah, I see. I don't think that that's actually a realistic scenario for him. Like, I don't think that is a scenario where
Really?
I need to hit this dude because I need to teach every other fan who might ever think about touching us that they can't do it. And the
I
way I'm
don't
gonna
know if I
teach
agree
them.
with that.
Now,
Because I'll tell you what,
I don't think
if if if
honestly, I
Kyle,
don't
if
think
Ron
that's a
Artest was
deterrent. I don't think that's a deterrent. I think it's actually an encouragement because the type of person who is going to have the audacity to interact physically with an athlete is the type of person. First of all, it's probably liquor involved, but
mhm,
the type of person who's going to do that is the type of person who is a guy that goes to the bar and picks a fight with the bouncer.
that
This is
that's a
kind of,
fair point.
and
Counterpoint to okay, okay.
that to me that's so sometimes if you give them the fight that they're looking for, you only encourage more fights. And trust me, this is coming from somebody who a little look, listen to me. I fought every single day in grammar school to the point that I would be in the middle of a fight and I would ask myself, Brian, you are fighting again. So I am I am no person that is like I'm really good at containing myself in these types of situations. I have not been throughout my life, which is the reason why I can appreciate what he did because I know me and I know most men. Most men, dude, you just push me. I'm finna slap the slob out your mouth, bro. This is what's
So
about to happen.
here's where I agree and disagree. Right? I agree that being able to control yourself is important,
Mhm.
and that not escalating a situation is a valuable quality to have. I disagree on 2 points. One, I don't think Ron Artest ever had a problem with a fan ever again. So that's my counterpoint on that one. I think Ron Artest and Steven Jackson could walk through all of the seats without a care in the world because everybody has a pretty good idea of
I
what's gonna happen if they
and
pop off.
I would bet you that that's not the case.
Okay, fair enough.
I would bet you that Ron Artest has been challenged more times now after that
By fans in
because
the game, I haven't
by
seen it.
by just fans, period.
Well, I'm talking about in the game. I'm just
Like
talking about in the
even
game environment.
I'm talking about even just anytime he interacts with a fan, if he interacts with a fan who might be a little liquored up, I think that if they saw that, that this is how,
That's speculation. I'm saying in games, I didn't see anything
you
close.
know
Like
what,
what happened with Russell Westbrook.
I would be
I see no even sniff of an incident with Ron Artest. I see nobody look in his direction. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't.
I
But
would
here,
be really interested to find out if he had how many times he's had to turn and walk away from
yeah,
people.
that would be interesting. But
I
here's
would
the
love to hear that.
and if that was the case, I would say that's partially because the league came down on Ron without enough of an emphasis on coming down on the people in the crowd, which
Hmm.
goes back to that consequences thing. And going back to the consequences thing, I am a believer that part for most of the world, the reason they're not violent is because they know that violence will come back towards them.
Hmm.
And so if I say, hey, if you push that guy, they're gonna yell at you and they're gonna say bad you. And you get how many beers does it take before you push him? But if I say if you push that guy, he's going to hit you in the face so hard your parents will never recognize you. It might take more beers to get you there. You know what I'm saying? It might take
I,
an extra couple of beers to get you to be that dumb.
I really I think it's just about the person. I really do. I think it's
Yeah,
just about the
but I
person
think there
because
are more
some
people
people don't have sense
who
enough
are
to be
thinking
scared. Some people don't have
fair
sense enough
enough.
to be scared.
But I think there are more people that are. I think
Mm,
there are more people who would say, you know what, I'd rather not have Kyle Lowry punch me in the face as hard as he could. I'd
yeah,
rather not have that happen.
yeah. I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. I don't know. Well, let's move on to the next topic, which we're finally getting out of the finals. We've been in the finals for 2.5 days.
Yeah.
You talk about the Nets apparently making room for
Kyrie Irving.
acquiring Kyrie Irving, which
I mean, it should be for any free agent, but the word on the street is Kyrie Irving.
yeah, because Kyrie is supposedly very interested in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a bad idea. I
Yeah.
don't think trading Allen Crabbe to create cap space is a bad idea. I think trading Allen Crabbe to create cap space for Kyrie Irving is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, no.
So I'm not all the way where you are, where I'm thinking it's a bad idea. It is not my favorite idea for the reasons we discussed. I don't think the gap between Kyrie and D'Angelo Russell on the court matches up with the gap between D'Angelo and Kyrie financially, or the gap between D'Angelo and Kyrie in terms of D'Angelo already works well with this team.
Hmm.
Kyrie has proven to not necessarily be an easy fit.
Hmm.
And so you're rolling the dice for what really? A
Yeah,
few less assists and a couple more points?
yeah.
Like I
And
just don't.
dynamic clutch scoring down the stretch. Of course, you got to give him that.
Yeah,
But I
for
don't.
sure.
I Here's the thing. I just watched Kyrie Irving go to a team that before he got there, they seemed to be a harmonious bunch on the way to significant team success. For whatever reason, whoever you blame, whoever you say didn't do this, didn't do that, Kyrie got there and they regressed. They regressed. It's There are some similarities to where Brooklyn is now, to where Boston. Now, Boston obviously had way more success. They had gone to the Eastern Conference Finals, but the way they function as a unit and as a team with the we don't have a definitive necessarily go-to guy. Yes, D'Angelo is our guy. He's our number one scorer, but who's hot gets the ball. The flow of the offense dictates where things go. That's where they are, and that's where they are on the incline. To me, I think it shows impatience and a buck and an abandonment to what your probably original team building plan was, to try to now accelerate your rise into contendership by saying, you know what, Kyrie's out there. Let's throw everything out the window. Let's go hard for Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and another guy. I think it kind of there's because I don't think that model is as sustainable as the model that they were building.
Yeah, Kenny Smith had a great quote today. He said, "Good teams know we don't microwave, we bake."
Yes.
And I thought that was an excellent way to look at it
Mm-hmm.
because he said what he sees in Boston, and this has been my contention with Boston all this time, is he sees growing pains. And the thing that I've criticized both Boston and LA for the most is hitting the panic button at the first sign of adversity. All of these, and this is, I think I have some disagreement with you here. All of these problems that Boston so-called had is just a somewhat bad year. It wasn't like they missed the playoffs. It wasn't even like they got knocked out in the first round. It wasn't like they were 15 wins off of what they were last year. And when you come, when you adjust for how much better the Eastern Conference is with the addition of Bud and several players in Milwaukee and the addition of Kawhi and Danny Green to Toronto, Boston is a third place or fourth place team anyway, and you adjust also for what Philly did this year. So they were only a little bit disappointing, according to what I thought they were. I thought people were overstating what they did last year and not understating what they did this year, but putting way too much on it. It's okay to have a bad year and correct your issues. Move a few role players that don't work with the chemistry and get some other guys in. I thought that not only did they panic too much, that Brad Stevens did a bad job of coaching personalities, of being a leader of men, but I thought from a media perspective, they let Kyrie Irving take way too much heat. And Kyrie didn't help himself by the things that he said in the media, although other veterans backed him up on the things he was saying, and he did not tell lies about what he was saying. I think what it is Kyrie's personality is he's very direct about some things, and he's very ambiguous about other things.
I
And
think I think I think ambiguous is probably too nice of a word. I think he's very direct about some things. I think he's downright passive aggressive about
that's
others.
that's totally fine. And he speaks in code, and he gets manipulative, and he gets very weird
Mhm.
about these things. And so, because he does both things, it can be very strange to interpret what he's doing, and people will tend to interpret towards the negative, particularly with how he left Cleveland and the interviews that he did after Cleveland. All that having been said, I thought it was a greatly fixable situation. And if Kyrie got there and this was the problem from day one, I would totally agree with you. But we had nearly an entire season of the Boston Celtics looking better than they'd ever been, with Kyrie Irving logging many minutes as a starter on that team. He got them to the point where they were that year before he got hurt. It wasn't like he only played 5 games, 10 games, 20 games. I don't remember how many games he played that year. I think it was something around 60, though. So
Which you're talking about his first year in Boston.
his first year in Boston.
Mm.
So Kyrie was clearly not the thing that changed. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And the reports have come out that he wasn't the thing that changed. And that team is split between young guys who aren't vibing and old guys who agree with Kyrie. We've seen Marcus Smart and Morris come out and defend Kyrie, right? We've even seen, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens come out and say this isn't all on Kyrie. Even Terry Rozier, who clearly had somewhat of a problem with Kyrie, said this isn't all on Kyrie. Yet throughout the year, they let it be all on Kyrie. So I don't think Kyrie should get that much blame for it, based on the fact that he was already there for a year. By the reports of the players themselves, he did his best to fit in. And that didn't change in the second year. He didn't come back and say, and now I take over the offense. I thought those were grossly inaccurate descriptions of how he was playing on the court. Yes, he's Kyrie Irving. No, he's not Tony Parker, right? He's not a system guy. But that's not his skill set. I don't know why you would want him to be a system guy. The problem that I've maintained was the issue all year was that locker room had chemistry issues. And since everybody on the team is part of that, everybody on the team gets a piece. But Kyrie Irving's the name that you hear over and over again, as if Gordon Hayward and Brad Stevens and Terry Rozier and we got on Jaylen Brown a lot during the show. Like they all weren't significantly adding to it. So this idea that you can't bring Kyrie Irving to a team and work with him, I don't think that's the case. It's the fact that you already have a guy who's working and producing near Kyrie's level and is healthier and is younger and is cheaper. That's why I have a problem with it. Not because I think Kyrie's going to be bad for the Brooklyn Nets. I think at worst they would be a little bit better than they are this year because they're all better and he's good. And if he's healthy, they'll be fine. I just don't think giving up on a young point guard that you grew and nurtured and formed a bond with who's healthier and younger, I just don't think that's a good move. You're just trading him out for a slightly better, more expensive, older, less healthy version. And I don't know about that. When your problem is that you don't have bigs, that's the issue.
Well, what I've heard or what I read today, and take it with a grain of salt, but it did come from Woj, so I put a little bit more you know respect on it. He said that the Brooklyn's plan at this point may be to retain D'Angelo and go for Kyrie and KD. That's why they're clearing cap space because they would like to keep D'Angelo, sign Kyrie and KD. I'm not sure how that works either.
I think
Uh,
it works to a degree because Kyrie has played a lot of two guard,
mhm,
and D'Lo has played a lot of two guard,
yeah,
and I do very much believe in that coach and that front office.
hmm,
So
yep,
if they think that can work, I'm willing to let them roll the dice on it, and I totally agree with that game plan.
yeah. That's interesting. And like you said, Kenny Atkinson is a heck of a coach.
Hmm.
So I do believe in the coach, but we also thought the same thing about Brad Stevens, and we also thought that he would be able to make that work in Boston with Kyrie, and it didn't work out the way we thought. Not even so much from an on the floor standpoint. I think that locker room wise, I think this appears. Now, like I'm not in the locker room, so I can't say definitively, but it appears as though it's damaged pretty well. And I think Kyrie's personality does have something to do with it. I think the youth of the age of the young core that they have also has something to do with it. I think if there were more veterans on that team playing significant roles, maybe it wouldn't be that way. Uh, Flat simple, without Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, perhaps it wouldn't be that way. Maybe they're the
I
two.
thought Terry Rozier in there as well. I don't think
Yeah,
Terry.
I think they had to do something with Terry Rozier anyway. I think Terry Rozier is too good and too young to accept the role he has to accept with
Well,
Kyrie Irving there.
I don't think that's the issue. And Terry Rose, this is from Terry Rozier's mouth. His issue was when Kyrie was off the floor because he's been playing backup point guard all this time. He didn't have a problem playing a backup role. When Kyrie was off the floor, the offense ran through Gordon Hayward, and he wound up sitting in the corner, and that's where he draws the line. And I get it. I get that a player has a place where they draw the line, and they say, "I'll work with you to a point, but I'm not going to completely do something outside of my value when I can go to a team that will value what I can already do very well, that will earn me more money, more. I
Well,
can earn more money someplace else in a larger role." I think that's totally fair in any workplace. And so for him to perform the way he did in the playoffs the year before and then be, by his perception, sitting in the corner when on the second team rather than feeling like he has a glut of the decision making, that again, that's why I put the Lions share because that's a complicated thing.
mhm.
This is, and I think people really want to simplify it down to Kyrie, and I think Kyrie has too much success in Boston for that to be the logical case. If his sophomore year was his first year, I'd be like, oh yeah, this guy's a disaster. No, Boston had their best stretch with Kyrie Irving in the uniform in terms of regular season. He wasn't there for the playoffs, so he can't really account for that.
Well, I watched an interview with Terry Rozier, and he flat said in this interview, at this point, they got to do something with him or me.
Yeah,
Like he flat said that. So I think at this point, I don't think it's that he hates Kyrie or mad at him or anything like that. I think it's more of he's ready to get a team and that he's the lead guard, which I think is totally understandable. I mean, he's a young guy and he's a young, talented guy who is not doing what everything that he's capable of, right? He's not. So I totally get it. But yeah, I don't know. Perhaps you see an older, more mature Kyrie who doesn't make some of the same mistakes with his mouth and with his body language that he's made in the past. Um, I already see a humbling in him to a degree by just kind of the way he's moving about things at this point. Doesn't mean he thinks he's completely wrong, but it could mean that he's looking at it like, okay, at the end of the day, I want to win, and I'm not sure if I can do that approaching things the way I have been. So I don't know. If they're keeping D'Lo, I'm a little bit more open to it. Because now it feels like more you're adding to what you already had. But to me, to say, all right, we're gonna chase Kyrie and let D'Lo walk. To me, now you're changing the entire identity of the team, and that's not good to me. That's not smart. So, all right, so let's move on to the next subject, which is another one of these things that I pulled from my friends on Instagram. And I really dig this question. I'm gonna tell y'all get ready to explode because you know what? First, let me say something. I gotta call a little bit of an audible here because I think I'm gonna use the word remiss for the second time in this show. I think I would be remiss. No, you know what? No, we got a segment already in effect right here for that, and I'm gonna wait to say it then. So, all right, so forget it. Let's move on. All right, so the question that
That was
that
smooth. Well done.
yeah, well, I fail, and but but we fall down, we get up. All right, so listen, are the players from the '80s and the '90s overrated?
Well, I think the you have to qualify that because it's a generic term to say the players, right? Like Michael Jordan's from the 80s and 90s,
Well,
and he's clearly not overrated.
I think they're talking about just I think they're talking about the superstars. I think they're talking about the overall uh idea of '80s, '90s basketball. I think
Okay, so I'm gonna say no, and there's a reason. I think the NBA game has evolved.
hmm
Some of that is rules changes.
hmm
People need to be under no illusions. Patrick Beverly would be making $5 more million a year if hand checking was in the NBA,
hmm
right?
hmm
If it's just that rule alone, if you simply put hand checking back, there would be a whole bunch of players whose skill sets would come up in value because being stronger on the perimeter would be a benefit instead of something that could cost you defensively, where you get handsy and then you're in trouble, right? So this whole rip through thing that guys are doing offensively, you didn't have that back in the day. They would
Right.
they would look at you like you were an idiot and watch the turnover and go the other way.
hmm
So the rules were different. People need to understand that. And when the rules are different, different skill sets are better for certain rules. There are players from today who would not do as well with those old rules. There are some players who would do equally well. There are some players who would do better. Same thing for the 80s and 90s. There are some players from the 80s and 90s who would be better now than they were back then. Like, say, even Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller would be a monster in today's league. Ray Allen. Ray Allen would be a better player
Who?
today. Ray
Who?
Allen.
Who?
Regular Ray.
Huh? Huh?
Regular Ray Allen.
Yeah.
He'd be better in today's league.
Yeah.
Allen Iverson. I don't know what they would do with Allen Iverson in the modern day league, because as great as Kyrie and Steph are off the dribble, I'm telling y'all, there's no comparison. Try to keep Allen Iverson in front of you, Russell Westbrook included. All these guys, Allen Iverson. It was like literally you could just watch Philadelphia games every single week. Two guys was in a 2K animation, Hall of Fame ankle breaker. You would see it all the time. This was a reliable thing. It was like Vince Carter and dunks. It happened all the time. It's not just the highlights. He always had an awesome dunk for you. So, it depends on who you're talking about because some people were born in the right time and some people were born in the wrong time. So to only look at the top is people mostly born in the right time. Some people are benefit from being born in a time that best suited their skill set. Whereas you take them, like I think Clyde Drexler's like that. I don't think Clyde Drexler's a guy who would do well today unless he was also trained by today's methods. I don't think you could just put Clyde Drexler in a time machine and have him today because everybody's as athletic as Clyde. Going one way, you get scouted too quickly. And help defense is amazing. So I don't think he had the skill set to punish these defenses the way, say, Kobe Bryant would be equally as good, if not outright better, because the paint's not as crowded. So guys with Kobe's skill set, he would either have room to post up or he would have 3-point shooters to throw the ball to. And I realize Kobe's not as far back as Clyde necessarily, but Yeah, even though they played against each other, but that's a soft overlap. So that's my answer to that. Is it really, really depends on who you're talking about. The question's a little oversimplified because the rule changes dictate which players from which group would translate. Some people would translate poorly from one time to another. Some people would translate really, really well.
I think I think the way you're like I look at it a little differently than you. And you mentioned you had a mention of something that I would incorporate in this whole concept if I'm contemplating it. I think a lot of times people like if you're talking, I think you got to look at this in two different ways. If you're talking about the time machine concept that you use, where you say you just drop the player as is into a time machine and go bam, like wake up, like where am I, Marty McFly? If the Marty McFly version of some of these players, yes, they would struggle because they wouldn't have the skill level, they wouldn't have the resources that players today have. But I think that we underestimate the ability of players to adapt to the meta, right? Um, man, I keep making references to this conversation that I had today, right? But somebody told me that Steph and Clay couldn't play in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And I think that that's ridiculous
Of course.
because the thing of it is they're not idiots. Okay. They're not idiots. They're not going to sit up and say, oh, you mean to tell me they can hand check me? Oh, well then
Well,
I give up.
I,
They're
I
not.
get I get more specific than that though.
Mhm.
Why is it that Mahmoud Abdul Rauf could play and Steph Curry couldn't?
and
Why could Kenny
and
Anderson play and Steph Curry couldn't? Why could
and
Rip Hamilton play and Klay Thompson couldn't?
and Steph's bigger than Mahmoud.
Right.
Not as fast, but bigger.
Yeah.
Um, and a better shooter. Mahmoud's a heck of a shooter, but
Yeah.
he ain't Steph Curry.
See, like, and anybody who's going to tell me that Jeff Hornacek could play and Klay Thompson couldn't, I mean, come on, man, what are we
Come
doing
on,
here?
bro. What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
What are we doing
What
here?
are we talking about?
Like,
So, but here's what I'm saying. You can't assume that a player cannot adapt to the meta. Like I've
well,
heard
here's
I've heard people say LeBron wouldn't be nothing in the 90s. Because are you serious?
right.
LeBron James would say, okay, he would have grown up in the era where people were more physical. So then, as an elite athlete, arguably the greatest athlete that's ever played the game, he would have said, I got to do different because this is and it wouldn't be, you got to think about it. It wouldn't be a transition for him if he was growing up and playing in that time. This
Yeah.
would be the way he knew the game.
And
You
again,
know,
I say to that person, so you're telling me Sean Kemp could play back then and go to the finals, but LeBron James couldn't because he's made of lesser stuff than Sean Kemp. You're an
it's it's
idiot.
it's
Please
it's
stop.
it's, it's ridiculous. It's
Now, I'm
absolutely ridiculous.
not going
And
to
so
entertain it.
it's
And I
just
love
it's
Sean Kemp, but
yes.
we ain't going to do that.
Right. Sean Kemp was a heck of a player, but
Right.
he ain't LeBron. He ain't nowhere near
He,
LeBron. And
no.
the crazy thing of it is, he's only an inch taller, about an inch and a half taller than LeBron. Anyway,
Right.
you know what I mean? But then you come on, it's ridiculous, man. A lot of times, I think sometimes people say that stuff because they're in love with their era, and out of respect and admiration for their era, they have to say that their era was the greatest. It's
I don't necessarily think it's that. I do think that the rules of the old times get less strict as new rules come in.
mhm.
And so we look at something like everybody puts the blame on Allen Iverson, but I maintain that Allen Iverson, if you see him in person, he's dribbling so fast that he can get away with more stuff like a Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James because they're so different than everybody else. It's harder to see it. You guys are watching it at 24 frames per second in a slower motion than the referee is seeing. The referee's watching all this stuff, and Allen Iverson, boom, boom, and maybe his palm got a little under the ball, but that happened literally in a fraction of a second. That is a far, far cry from Kevin Durant and Paul George and all of these 6'8" wings putting the hand completely under the ball, doing an actual hesitation, and then turning their hand back over the ball and dribbling again. So guys see that and they say, if I was allowed to do that, I would have averaged 7 more points per game because we weren't allowed to do that. And they're right. When guys see a guy like Steph Curry, you know, or James Harden causing offensive fouls that are called as defensive fouls, they'd go, if I'd have done that, they would have elbowed me in the chest and called it a day.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even have got a flagrant for it. It'd just been a regular foul, and they'd be like, do it again, grab my arm again, see what happens.
See,
And they're right about that. So you look at Steph Curry, egregious carry yesterday.
yeah,
Egregious,
yes,
completely got away with it.
yes,
And
completely got away.
just like what is happening right now, we're seeing the traveling, right?
Yeah,
There's travels that were called from back in the day that
yeah,
weren't even really travels by the letter of the law, but they look travel-ish, so they called
yes.
it.
They look trapped. They look weird.
Right.
Because
Where you
because that's the way I grew up playing basketball. If you did a move that looked weird, it was travel.
it happened to me. I did a Euro step before I knew what a Euro step was. I was just thinking, oh, if I just move more to the left and more to the right, that's more deceptive. And they were like, that's traveling. I'm like, no, it's just 2 steps, 1, 2, see? And it's like a big argument because of how it was called back then.
Right.
Meanwhile, today, Klay Thompson captures the ball at the half court line and literally just runs to the basket, take 4 or 5 steps, and nobody say nothing.
Yeah.
So when you see the laxness in the contact and the officiating, I understand why old heads look at today's game and go, "We wouldn't have got away with that if we were allowed to do that. We'd have been way better." If Dr. J had 4 people standing on a 3-point line and they could all shoot, and you just had to stop Dr. J from dunking on you, guess what he would have done? That's valid,
Yeah.
totally valid. I think it's also valid to do the reverse. If if you guys had to play when there were so many people in the paint, you would have had a tougher time. But to say, if you had to learn to shoot just to stay in the league, where would you be? Because I seen your whole career and nobody was stopping you from learning to shoot and you still couldn't do it. Back in the day when everybody wasn't 6'9", 6'11", and could run and jump out the gym, maybe you got away with being in the league. But today, you need to actually learn how to, run, pass, dribble, and shoot to stay in the league. Tall ain't good enough. Totally valid argument to bring up. That's why it changes from player to player.
See, but here's what I think. I think that there are more players playing. I think there are more players from the 80s and 90s who couldn't play today than there are. I think that there. I don't think that there is anybody in the NBA today who couldn't have played in the 80s and the 90s. I don't think there is one person. And here's why I say that. There are absolutely players in the 80s and 90s who played, who we know definitively. If you take that guy with that level of athleticism, and see, this is the key. It's about what was your primary skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your If you flat out were not an NBA level athlete today, based off of today's standards, to the point where your athleticism was so below what is required today, you can't be in the league. It's
Here's
just that simple. It's a
the reason I
Paul
would just
McKeskey, okay, Randy Brewer.
Randy Brewer.
These are the types of guys that if you look at that guy and you try to find an NBA roster where Paul McKeskey, Randy Brewer, Granville Waiters, these are guys every team had. Chuck Nevitt, every team had a guy like this on their team, or multiple guys. Jim Peterson, John Koncak, every team had guys like this on their team. 2 to 3, maybe. You take those guys off of the roster, and you mean to tell me that you couldn't find a place for Cristiano Felicio? Cristiano Felicio makes Paul McKeskey. If you let Cristiano Felicio play against Paul McKeskey 82 games a season, he's going to average 18 points and 11 rebounds, probably. Athletically, there are guys who in the 80s and 90s, they just would not have made the cut. They would not have made the cut. And that's why I think we underestimate the fact that human beings are bigger, stronger, faster than they were 25, 20 years ago. The athletes are. Now, I do think there are certain skills that have been that were more developed in the 80s and 90s. But I think that, man, if you look at the way kids learn basketball now, right? We sometimes we get on them for depending that they won't defend, or they depend too much on like every layup's got to be a jelly layup. If you go play ball today with a lot of young people, they every layup gotta be, it's never can just be this. It's got to be something
Mhm.
else. But those are all mental things, right? Those are all mental things. You choose to do a layup like this as opposed to a regular one. You choose not to go out on defense. It's not that you can't, you choose not to, which are things that are coachable and that can be corrected. Like, so if somebody comes at LeBron, they say, oh, well, LeBron wouldn't be the same guy in the 80s and 90s. You're saying that because you're saying that he's not tough enough, mentally tough enough. Nobody's going to ever make a valid argument that LeBron isn't a good enough athlete. He isn't skilled enough to play in the 80s and 90s. Nobody would ever make that, not logically make that argument. If they're going to poke holes at LeBron's ability to succeed in a different era, it's going to be because they're challenging his heart, which is,
And
you know,
again, I don't think there's any universe in which you head to head compare LeBron James to like Clyde Drexler or, even James Worthy, who's a great player, and find LeBron James coming up short. I think that's ridiculous.
it's
I just
crazy.
think it's ridiculous. And I'm comparing him to very good players, let alone comparing him to like marginal players like Xavier McDaniel and stuff like that.
It's
So
M7 just said the game is mostly mental. The game is mostly mental once you grow big and strong enough and fast enough to compete physically.
now,
That's what it
so
is. Because I can be mentally stronger than LeBron right now, but I'm 6'5", 260. He's 6'8", 260 and chiseled out of granite and a great athlete. You gotta have the physical. You gotta check the boxes
Well,
physically first.
there's a couple of things. So strength is a physical attribute. Everybody doesn't have equal capacity to be physically strong. And I think when you allow more contact in the game, the same way when you open the court up and faster athletes with better shooting skills and better ball handling will excel, when you shrink the court, athletes that are born stronger will excel. It goes both ways. And everybody who plays today isn't equally able to be as strong as everybody who played before. And just from a pure number standpoint, because there's been a lot of expansion, depending on when you start this conversation, because you say 80s and 90s, we're talking about teams that we feel have been around for a while. That I grew up when I first started watching basketball didn't exist, like Charlotte and Miami and Orlando, and you know, there's a bunch of these teams that in New Orleans and stuff like that. Like these teams didn't exist back then, so the league has expanded. So when you start shrinking it down, just from a musical chair standpoint, somebody's going to get left out.
Mhm.
You can't one to one translate it across the board. And there are people on the roster today that I do think would not be able to go back in those leagues. And I think some of what we saw from guys on the floor back then was a direct product of that exchange of value and skills. There are guys back then who had the shooting talent superior to guys right now, right? But they weren't allowed to do that either A, because of the mentality back then,
Mhm.
or B, because of the physicality back then. So the game is more European now. I think a lot of those European players from back in the day, like your Tony Kukoc coaches and your Detlef Schrempfs, would probably be a little better today in today's league because of
Yeah.
the skills that they
Yeah.
had.
I mean, dude, Tony, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, Luka Doncic's not better than Tony Kukoc. He's
I mean,
not.
Luka Doncic. I'd have to see Tony Kukoc when he's like super young because Luka is super
I,
young. So
I
I have to
saw
see how
I
he
saw I
develops.
saw Tony Kukoc very young, like maybe a year or two older than what Luka is now. Because I think Tony got, I don't know how old Tony was when he was a rookie. Tony was, I don't believe Tony was a 25-year-old rookie. I don't think he was, because Tony, like a lot of the European players that came over, well, no, he was a 25-year-old rookie. I didn't think he
Yeah.
was that old.
So
I
and
didn't think he was
Luka
that old.
was 18 years old when he was MVP of the Euro League, and he was 19 years old when he's probably going to be Rookie of the Year of the NBA, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
insane.
I, I
So
s- I
that's
still
an
don't
unfair
think
comparison. I think people.
I still don't think that he, from a overall skill level standpoint, where you top, because Luca has a ceiling because of his athleticism. He has a ceiling that he's only going to get so good because he's not a great athlete
I mean, I don't know if
by
that's true.
NBA
Is
standards,
he a worse athlete than Jokic?
but he's not 6'11". and
but
he's
he
not
can handle and
270 pounds.
he can handle and he can shoot. So he's on the
And
perimeter.
Jokic has a ceiling. It's just not as significant because he's a big. But as a perimeter player who is not a good athlete, his that lack of athleticism is more detrimental to him than it is to Jokic. It's because the only place where Jokic really, and obviously this is the most commonly run play in the NBA, but the one play where Jokic, his lack of athleticism gets exposed the most is in screen and roll.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not in that situation, using his there's a place where Jokic's physical makeup actually helps him because he's so big and heavy and strong on the block, and as a rim protector and as a space eater to stop penetration, he actually is an asset. There is no place at all where Luka Doncic's physical makeup is a plus on defense. Nowhere. Nowhere. He's slow, his feet are slow. That's just it. That's just his thing. He has to get you back on the other end. He got to get you
I
back on
agree
the
with
other
that,
end.
but he seems a lot more agile than Tony.
I don't not to Tony that went not early Tony with Chicago. Not I mean Tony wasn't like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to paint Tony as LeBron, but Tony was, I think Tony's a better athlete than Luka. I
Oh,
think
I'm sure he's a better athlete, but Luka has a lot of skill. Like Luka's a
Tony,
tremendously skilled
dude,
player.
Tony
Tony was
had,
very skilled. I mean, I watched a lot of Tony Kukoc, but I don't
man,
think
Tony could,
I
dude,
like
Tony
I
could
don't
have
agree
done
with the
so
say
much more if he was not playing with Mike and Scotty.
maybe, but I don't think it's fair to judge a 24, 25, even 22, 23-year-old Tony Kukoc versus a 19-year-old Luka Doncic and
I,
say
I
he was a
agree.
better
I
player.
agree with that. I agree with that for the most part. But what I will say is when you see where a guy's athleticism ceiling is, right? Luka Doncic's 19 years old. He's not going to get much better of an athlete than he is. He's not. He's not. He's never going to be fast. He's never going to be a leaper. He's never going to be that guy. He can get stronger.
He can get a lot stronger, right?
He can get stronger, but he's not going to get quicker. And like I said, he's not going to leap. He's not going to be a better leaper. When you also factor in the fact that Tony Kukoc was taller, but literally played the same positions as him, Tony was a better player than Luka Doncic is going to be. He's a better player than Luka Doncic is going to be.
Okay, we'll
It's
see. We'll
just,
see how it turns out.
yeah, he came in playing with Mike and Scotty, so he played a certain type of a role. But if you gave Tony the ball and allowed Tony to be the quarterback of an offense, I'm telling you, I watched that dude like every single game of his career, the first 4 or 5 years. And there were times when he was the most dominant player on the floor
Hmm.
because of his ability to score, set guys up. And he also had very underrated defense in passing lanes. You look at Tony's steal numbers throughout his career, you're like, man, I always thought he wasn't a good defender, but Tony had an instinct for the ball. So
Again, my argument isn't that Tony wasn't a good player. It's just Luka Doncic at 19 years old being a EuroLeague MVP in a much more competitive European league
yeah.
and being Rookie of the Year in actually a pretty talented rookie class,
Mhm.
uh, putting that at a capping him at Tony Kukoc is a lot for me right now. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, see, I
Maybe he
see.
doesn't
I
get
think
any
I
better.
think the only thing is to me capping him at Tony Kukoc means is a compliment to me, in my opinion, because I consider Tony to be a much better talent and player than what he actually accomplished because of the situation he came into. Because if Tony was coming along now, he would have been in the league earlier than he is now. Then he got there. And if he had arrived to a team like Luca arrived to, where the team sucks essentially. I mean, Tony came into a team that won the championship. So I think there's a definite I think there's a definite uh
Mm. But so
parallel.
so you but your final verdict is you're saying 80s and 90s players are overrated.
I don't think 80s and no 80s and 90s stars are not overrated, but I do think that there are, when people get caught up in this 80s 90s basketball, that all of the players, all of the teams were better, when they start getting into a general blanket statement about it, I think that's when we're getting a little bit homerish about the basketball we grew up on. And don't get me, that's the basketball I grew up on. I grew up on 80s 90s basketball. But what I'm saying is, I know there's a lot of people. I saw some names in the chat: Rick Mahorn, these type of people. These guys, man, they couldn't play in the league today. And
But
some of these guys play
because
significant roles, especially defensively. And I just don't think that they could play in the league today because the rule set would take them out of it.
well,
Not and not
my issue with this is that the rule set of today is combining with the skill set of today. You're not taking the skill set of today and putting it with the rule set of yesterday, or vice versa. So, a guy like Rick Mahorn, I agree with you. Kendrick Perkins said it himself the other day. He said, if I was playing in the 80s and 90s, I'd still be playing. I'd had a
Mhm.
longer career, right?
He's
And he's
right.
probably right
He's 100% right.
because of the way the game is played, though, and the way the rules are. So, he's not saying I'm a bad player today, but a good player back then because I'm not good enough to play today. He's saying I'm a bad player with these rules. If you change these rules to those old rules with these same players right now, and I was allowed to put my hands on guys, they wouldn't be doing all the stuff they're doing. Because I played against some and with the best players in the league. This is a guy who played with LeBron James and Kevin Garnett and against Kobe Bryant. He knows what talent looks like.
And
He's
Ray
not just
Allen.
coming off, sure, and he's not just, you know, he's not, and Kevin Durant, and he's not just talking about off, off the cuff. He's seen some of the best talent ever to play up close, and his thing is really the rules of that. We talking about guys practicing
Yeah,
day in and day out.
yeah.
Like he has a good assessment of where he is and where he would be. And his thing is basically, yeah, if everybody stands around the 3-point line and nobody could touch nobody, and I got a guard in the pick and roll, I need to be out here in a suit getting fat.
Mhm.
But let me put my hands on somebody, and I'd have had another 3, 4, 5 really effective years in the league, especially if my knee didn't get hurt. And I think that is totally valid. And you have to look at the other side of that and not just assume that the Rick Mahorns of the world, who he was Rick Mahorn because of how strong he was.
Mhm. See,
That,
my
well, I was gonna say that if you trade him out with Thon Maker, that Thon Maker would do better back then than Rick Mahorn would do. No, Thon Maker is not going to be as successful in the 80s and 90s.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know about that. I really don't because here's what I think about. I think about the concept of adaptation, right? And if you take Thon Maker at 7'1", long, athletic, has
And
some
Patrick Ewing would give him
okay,
45 every
but
single
listen to
game.
listen to what I'm saying though. If you take him and with that size, which his size would be more elite then than it is now. Now it's not as significant because there are so many people within his height range, right? But at this time, he would be more elite.
Can I
He
call a
would,
quick timeout
he,
on that?
yeah.
Being that tall isn't that big of a
No,
benefit
but
in this
listen to
league because everybody's not as close to the basket.
let me finish the whole concept though. If he's already that tall, adding the strength is very possible, and not and like you said, there are some people who are naturally strong, and a naturally strong person is always going to be stronger than a guy who has to add the strength in the weight room. It's always going to be that way. It's called country strong. That's what we call it. So a guy who's naturally strong is going to always be stronger than that guy. But he could get strong enough to the point where he'd be able to use his length more effectively. Not comparing him to David Robinson, but David Robinson's not a naturally strong guy. He got strong in the weight room, which was enough to then allow him to take advantage of some of his gifts, of his gifts, which were extraordinary gifts. To me, if you talk about where the deficit is, right? So because if you look at each player from each era and you compare them to the other era, you say, okay, well, what is it that you don't do well that is of value in the other era? And then I say, well, and then I start asking myself, could you get it? Right? Rick Mahorn, fat bottom, wide leg Rick Mahorn. Me trying to ask myself, could Rick Mahorn ever get lean enough? could he ever get athletic enough to be more than a plodding, undersized big man who has no ability to stretch a floor, has no ability to do anything except for give somebody 4 to 5 hard fouls? And I asked myself, how could he, what team, what archetype in the current NBA is anything like Rick Mahorn? And then I asked myself on the flip side, okay, what's Thon Maker's deficit for competing in the 80s and 90s? The biggest thing I think about is the fact he's not strong enough. He's physically not strong enough. You know, other things, getting a back to the basket game, which is something he has some semblance of. If he has a hook shot over the right, hook shot over the left. And I'm not trying to say he become a perennial all-star. But what I'm saying is his deficit is more feasible to close than it is for a unathletic player by today's standards, like a Rick Mahorn. Not just a subpar athleticism, but also undersized as well. So
Well,
you're
and
also
this is what I was going to say about the
not just less
size
than
thing.
athletic. You don't have the size.
People are playing small ball for a reason, and small ball takes effect because skill is the premium in the league. Skill and length, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the thing about it is, as NBA players have gotten paid more,
Mm-hmm.
you are pulling in talent from wider places. And
Mm-hmm.
the way they scout is they scout physically more often than mentally, particularly when you start going towards the end of the bench, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start looking for specialists. This guy's long, he can't do nothing else. And when you go to those guys who are that in this league, this guy can shoot, he can't do anything else. This guy's long and he can dunk, he has no other skills. I think sometimes when we take the modern version of that player and we put them back in time, we give them all these skills that they could have today and they don't have today. And why don't they have those skills? Like, why is Terry Ferguson a scrub? I don't know. He should not be a scrub. He's
You
super
talking about Terrence
athletic.
Ferguson? You talking about OKC?
Yeah,
You think
but
he's a
he's
scrub?
yeah,
I
he's a
wouldn't call him
scrub.
a scrub.
If he was in, if OK, when OKC was in the playoffs, he was the worst two guard in the entire playoffs
But now,
by a country mile.
but you know this kid is super young though, man.
I mean, still a scrub.
Yeah, but
Jamal Murray's young.
I mean,
D'Angelo
okay.
Russell young.
I don't know if I can't
Karis
call
LeVert's young. I
I
could go. I
can't
could do this all day. I could do this
I
all day.
I can't call him a scrub,
Ben Simmons is young. I could literally do this all day.
but I can't call a kid a scrub. A
Oh,
scrub.
are you looking up his scrubby numbers? I'll wait.
I'm looking.
Read
I'm
them
look.
off.
I'm looking up here. I want to see how old he is. Wait a minute. Why am I spelling Terrence wrong?
He can't even spell his name right.
Right. It must be something bad about it. I just don't. I don't know if I can call the kid a scrub. Because scrub is a harsh term, and I'm not sure I can go. Yeah, it's an A instead of a E. How old is this boy? He's 21, and he
Yeah.
just turned 21 in May. I
Okay.
can't call him a scrub.
He's a scrub right now. He's a scrub.
Yeah,
How old is Donovan Mitchell? Like literally, the funny thing about you saying this is so many of his competition are his age. That's what's really funny about it.
but but we also know that the development is different. They like okay at 20. Look up what Tracy McGrady's numbers were.
Sure, but
Tracy,
I'm judging this guy right now and saying right now he's a scrub. I didn't say he will always be a scrub. I'm just saying right now Terrence Ferguson has very few viable basketball skills, even though athletically he's pretty much as gifted as they come.
yeah, I mean, he's insane.
But what does he do well?
He runs and he jumps,
That's what
and
basketball. What does he do
he's
well?
actually he's a good 3-point shooter.
Good, huh?
Yeah,
What's this good 3-point shooter? How many attempts does he make? And what's his percentage? I'm not
he's
even gonna look it up. I'll let you look it up.
he shot 4 threes a game this year, and he made just under 37% of them. That's a good 3-point shooter. Now, the fact that he might not hit them at opportune times, that's a whole different type of thing. But
He's
if you shoot just under
he's
37% from
barely
three
above
point
league
range,
average. He's not good.
if you shoot 37% from 3-point range, and you are the athlete that he is, you got just about everything you need to be a solid player.
Yet he's not. And the thing is, on OKC, all his 3-pointers are wide open. I mean,
What
he got an Iguodala 3-pointer every
I
time he get one.
I am not
He wide. They ain't even guarding him.
I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm just saying that the shots he gets, he knocked down 37% of them, and 37% is is good enough for me to say that you're a good 3-point shooter. You're a decent 3-point
No,
shooter.
it's very slightly above average. Is
I
it
don't
league average
I
30,
would
30 is the 35?
I don't know what the league average is. I'd have to look it up, but that
Wait a minute.
what
So wait, you said just under 37%? So he's
yeah,
36 and change.
36 point
Oh,
yeah,
see, is
30,
you goosing the numbers.
36.6. No, that's
Oh,
just under
that ain't
36.
just under
No,
37. That's
if here this
36.6.
the way I do it is
36.9, I give you.
the way I do it
36.8, I
is
even give you.
the way I do it is if you're over 36.5, then I say you're just under 37. If you're 36.5 and under, then I just say you're shooting 36. I just That's just the way I always do all the stats.
So
I
if I owe you $60, I'm gonna give you 56, and that's good enough.
I would say you owe me just under $5.
Rounding up.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's 36% is, I mean,
No, that's league average. I mean, the average is average because it's not good.
I don't know if I'd have to look. I'm not saying that that's not league average. I know if that's league average, that's definitely has gone up.
And also keep in mind, that's league average for a guy who's getting wide
No,
open
league
shots
average.
and is athletic.
Okay, so I don't know if this is necessarily league average, but the league last year shot. No, this is league average. 32% is league average. It's the highest. This is the highest league average in history too. This the 32% from three is the highest it's ever been in history.
You
Last
so
year
you
was
saying that's what the whole league shot,
whole
but
league
you
shot.
realize that's including that the guys like Ben Simmons and
So what?
Joel
So you're
Embiid who
saying
ain't got
league
no
average
business
for
taking four or
small
five threes a
forwards
game.
or shooting guards? Is that we
For,
talking about league?
obviously, for a guy whose job it is to hit 3-point shots, yes,
So we're saying league. We're saying league average. Okay, wait a minute. Wait a
because
minute. Oh no. Okay, so no, I don't know. I don't understand how they have these stats. Like, so it
yeah,
says
but
18.
and we're getting a little off
Oh,
track
my
here.
bad. Wrong. I was wrong. League average is 35.5%.
Wow, I wish somebody in this conversation had brought that up because that would have been. Oh, wait a minute,
It's not.
I brought
It's
that up.
still above league average. He's shooting 36.6%. That's above league
He's
average.
and like what did I say? I said he is barely above league average,
But
and he's literally
okay, so but
one
the
point.
original.
Hold on. He's 1.1% above league average on wide open, probably mostly
We
corner 3-point shots, which means he does not qualify as a good 3-point shooter
Yes, he
because
does.
if he was a good, all right, well we can definitely agree to disagree on that one. Terrence Ferguson is not a good 3-point shooter.
I don't I think he is a decent 3-point shooter is what I would say. I don't think it if I say it, well, I would say good. I mean, if you make if you can knock down 36 to 37% of your threes, especially with the level of athleticism that he has. Here's the thing. If put it like this, if Terrence Ferguson had shot just under 37% from three in the playoffs, Oklahoma City wouldn't have lost to the Portland Trailblazers.
He's not a good shooter. So when he's in a situation where he might actually be guarded, his percentage is going to go way down because his numbers are deceptive. Because until you go deep into his numbers and actually watch the team play over and over again, and you see him miss a lot of wide open shots, but all of his shots are wide open. So he's shooting just over 3 out of 10 on wide open 3-pointers on average. And you're like, yeah, that guy can't really shoot, but he can't shoot. He's just all right. It
Now,
doesn't compare to a guy who can actually shoot. He can't. He's not a good shooter yet. He might become a good shooter. I hope
I,
he does. I like Terrence Ferguson.
I
Here's the
don't
funny thing. I
I
actually
don't
like
think
Terrence Ferguson. My point is that a guy like Terrence Ferguson, who's not a good NBA player, is not a good NBA player because he simply is not good. It's not because he's born in this era or that era. Some people just either don't put in the work to learn, they don't learn how to learn, they just never learn those skills. So when you take a player from today and you transport them back in time, but you magically give them all these skills that they may or may not have learned, that's a skewed viewpoint. That's why I say it varies from player to player. When I take a player from back in the day and apply them to today, I'm taking skills that they actually have. And when I do the reverse, I'm taking skills that they actually have. I'm not taking a, my team Galaxy Opal version of the player and putting them through the time machine mystery filter of, well, if they were born then, they definitely get all of those skills.
You
There are
have to.
plenty.
You
Well, let me
have
just
to. If
finish. No,
don't,
you
you're
don't have to.
oversimplifying it.
You don't have to because plenty of people today are scrubs. There are plenty of scrubs in the league today. And the thing is, why are they scrubs? As you said, they have all the athleticism in the world, a lot of them. Yet they still can't do anything. Still dribble the ball with their foot. In today's league, can't dribble at all. In today's league, can barely shoot a lick. In today's league, shooting terrible free throws. Why are they doing those things? Because they suck. I don't know why they suck. There's a billion reasons that you suck. But to take someone who sucks at something today and put them back in the day and say they would or would not suck at this other thing, no, like that's too much of a filter.
No, I think that you we under like I do believe that some guys just don't have a competitive enough nature, or they don't have the willingness or the desire to be great. I will give you that. But I what I will say is, and we're way over.
Yeah.
What I will say is I think we underestimate the ability of people to adapt. Human beings adapt, and they adapt to what the meta is. If the meta for minimalist success, that's the whole point. Terrence Ferguson is good enough to be in the league, more than good enough to be in the league, right? He's Terrence Ferguson is not a dude that's skating on thin ice. Like, we don't know if he'll get picked up next year by somebody. He's not that guy. And if he's good enough for that right now, maybe if it even if it is because he won't commit to being better, there's no reason for me to believe that in another era he wouldn't have the requisite level of commitment, because we both know he could be better than he is now. He's only 21, he probably will be better. So because of that, there's no reason for me to automatically assume that, oh, I put him in a different situation and now he's going to automatically he's going to stop right where he is. So I don't know. I don't know. So yeah.
So yeah, and the flip side to that is, I mean, I listen. Very few people believe in human adaptation to the level that I do. One of the things that, in fact, the drawing series I'm going to do on YouTube is going to be called "Anyone Can Draw," right? Because I really do believe that anybody does have the ability to learn how to draw. It's just that we haven't been taught properly how to learn how to draw. We don't have the proper teaching methods to give people the best chance to be successful. But when you talk about everything involved in getting better, people have to want to do that. And once people get paid, and this has happened all the time, and in fact, a great reason why so many players from back in the day weren't better than they were is because the environment that they grew up with didn't produce a successful mindset, right? So they either got into drugs or women or alcohol or partying or just spending money, and that was their thing. When they were 14, 15 years old, basketball was their thing. Or maybe they was just tall and it was like, I could get paid in the NBA. That's cool. I'm gonna do that. Some guys are just like that, and some guys are like that today. They tell you there's always two or three guys in the locker room who don't love the game. They're just tall enough that if they do this much effort, they can play in the league. And today, if they have a wingspan and can shoot 34%, they can get a job.
36.6.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm saying if they can shoot 34% and they're tall and they have a decent wingspan, they could get a job. But if those same guys were asked to bang with Rick Mahorn and Bill Lane Beer and Patrick Ewing and Anthony Mason, those guys might not be for that world because it's just harder. It's just too hard. They just be like,
Yeah.
and they'd be skating on the edge of the roster. So that's why I said my official response was, it's a player by player thing, and it's an
Yeah.
era by era thing. You have to take this player and give me a year and ask me if that guy would work. Then I'd say yeah. I don't think everybody from today's game would replace everybody in the old league except
Not
the
everybody,
superstars.
no. Not everybody. Not everybody. But I do think that I do think the end of the bench in today's game is better than the end of the bench in '80s and the '90s.
I
I
would
do
agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that we have so many more teams, and there are some players in the league who are getting away with being truly terrible and like literally can't do anything. Like I don't think Ron Baker will make a roster in
Oh, I think
1996.
Ron Baker makes the roster. I can think of
I
a
don't.
bunch of dudes in the '86 who are Ron Baker, especially because he plays hard, especially because he has great effort and a decent basketball IQ, especially because of that. I is Ron Baker not Craig Elo? I mean, similar.
Nah,
I don't
I
know.
don't think
I
I
don't know.
would. I take Craig Elo over Ron Baker any day,
Yeah,
and
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I like Ron Baker. You can have him though.
he coming to a Bulls
No, we don't
uniform
need
near
that.
you.
We don't need that. We don't need that.
Think
All
you need
right.
that depth.
So check it out. The next topic we got to move on. But all right. Let's talk about Drake. I thought we were kind of done with the finals, but I guess not.
Okay,
Drake. Do you
he's
think?
a rapper, right?
Yeah, he is. He is. Well, if it depends on who you ask. But
Yo, real quick. So I'm sorry because I know we got to get to Drake.
yeah.
I just started watching Billions, and these two rich white dudes are getting a massage, right?
Uh-huh.
And one guy says, I don't trust Axelrod. He goes around spending money like a rap singer. And the other guy says, rap MC. He goes, what? He says, they're called rap MCs. And the guy goes, no, they sing now. My kids showed me. I thought that was the best.
That actually is a really that's a really dope line for a show that is so not a hip hop
Right.
show. That's
Absolutely.
that's really that's very astute. Nah, I dig it. I dig it. But yeah, I mean, and Drake definitely is a rap singer. Um,
Okay.
he's a rap singer. So do you think that because it's funny, right? We were talking about, fans making contact with players and so on and so forth. Now Drake is Drake, but at the end of the day, he's still a fan, you know. And obviously, Drake has a rapport with a ton of the league, right? And there doesn't appear to necessarily be any malice, even though I do think that he caught Draymond in a tough situation. I think they're cool, but Draymond is a very emotional dude, and um, so he had a little back and forth with him, a little barking after what was a game or during what was it, game two or game one? I can't remember which one it was. Do you believe in the Drake effect? Do you think that it has any? Do you think it bothers other teams at all?
I think it definitely bothers them. I don't know if it bothering them is a bad or a good thing. I think that varies from player to player. I think for
Hmm.
some players it's distracting. For some
Hmm.
players it gets them fired up,
Yeah,
right? In fact, I compared it to the
Spike.
Spike Lee and Chris Rock thing, right?
Hmm.
So like Spike Lee got Reggie Miller all fired up.
Hmm.
Chris Rock was telling jokes to Kobe Bryant on the sideline, and Kobe Bryant was literally like staring in one direction as if he couldn't hear him.
Hmm.
And if I mean you watch any Chris Rock interview, he's probably saying the funniest damn thing you'd ever heard. And Kobe literally looked like he couldn't even hear him, and he could because he was just that close,
Hmm.
right? So it's two different responses. I think it's interesting that Durant and Clay waited in the hallway for Drake to come by so that they could talk to him.
Hmm.
That's interesting. That
Yeah.
it's one thing in the heat of the moment on the court. First of all, I love the whole Drake as a fan thing. I have no
Hmm.
problem. He shouldn't have put his hands on the coach officially, but I believe that he has a relationship with everybody there. So
Hmm.
it's like you grew up with, a female friend and you touch her in a way that's just familiar, kind of horsing around between you guys, but somebody just sees a man and a woman and they think something's going on. And
Hmm.
it's not going on. Y'all been through a million things together. Y'all had a bunch of conversations. It's nothing. I think that might be the thing with Drake and Nick Nurse. Him and Nick Nurse have probably had a bunch of conversations. Drake is deeply involved with the organization from like promotional standpoint and all that stuff. I think he has a locker or something like that. So it's not like, and he sits in like a special section. So it's different. It's
Mm-hmm.
that he's not just paying for a good seat. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like so when whatever his interactions are, I leave that up to the Raptors to decide what's appropriate. I think that's mostly for public consumption. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they have a problem with anything Drake is doing. I think they're thrilled with the whole Drake thing, and I think it's good for us, the fans, to watch it all goes down. It just adds to the story. But it's interesting for me to see how this continues to develop because all it takes is for you to be in a situation in Toronto where, let's say, a Quinn Cook gets into it with Drake because KD and Draymond and Clay are talking trash with Drake. He don't know Drake as well as they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Drake says something that gets on his nerves. And he hits a shot and looks at Drake. But then the next time he takes a shot, he misses and Drake says something to him. And the next shot, he's thinking about Drake. That's where it's like, I only need Drake to give me one missed shot. If
Mm-hmm.
Drake could defend one jump shot,
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yeah,
done
he's done his
more than
job.
right. Right. You 1 for 3 versus Drake? Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it really depends on how it plays out. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Because at the end of the day, this is still basketball, right? And it's
Yeah.
still about a human being having to uh, rise up for a jump shot and knock one down. And if there are times, and I call this old man defense, because as an old man, you're not always able to run out to the shooter as quickly as you would like. So sometimes what happens is instead of running out to him, you're on your way out there and you go, hey! And you do that because you're trying to throw him off so
Yeah.
that you can't, he'll miss. And you're trying to
Hmm.
just a slight bit of disturbing of the rhythm as he raises up, maybe changes the release point and causes a miss. It happens all the time. You know, as an old man who plays basketball 4 to 5 times a week, I promise you, I use this method of defense fairly regularly, right? So, and sometimes it can make a guy miss. Now, obviously, that's going to happen less with a professional basketball player, but it can still happen, especially
And some
with
guys shoot better
all.
when you do that.
Some guys do. Some guys don't. You say nothing to him because every
Right.
single time you say it, that's nothing but bottoms
Hmm.
every single time, right? It's there's a guy I play with. He's like 55, but he's a fantastic shooter. I'm just
Hmm.
fantastic shooter. Don't say that's off when he's shooting because every time you say that's off, you might as well just go up under the net and get it out because he's not gonna miss,
Right.
right? If he misses, he just missed on
And the
his own.
teammates get mad you said something.
Don't say nothing to him. Don't say nothing,
Yeah.
right? And some guys are like that, but some guys are not. Some guys are, you can literally disturb their rhythm and everything by when they raise up, hey, 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 and it changes. You go from looking like Glenn Rice to looking like Markel Fultz on the delivery, you know. And
Hmm. Hmm.
if like you said, if Drake can cause one of those, is huge because then now the player, the Quinn Cook in this scenario, is now pissed off at himself because he allowed a freaking rapper in the stands to make him miss a shot on his job. You know what I'm saying? And now, yes, the next time down, I'm thinking about you started from the bottom, now you missed because
Right. Right.
you just allowed this guy to force you to miss a shot. So I don't. Some people are like the NBA needs to do something about Drake, or whatever. No, don't become the
That
NFL.
that'd be foolish. That'd be
Don't
foolish.
become don't become the NFL. It would be different if he's out there tripping guys, you know,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. I mean, that would be different. I he's Drake, and not
Hmm.
every fan is going to be Drake. This is a special situation, a special scenario. Now, I could see some other people from other in other cities who celebrities who are looking to big themselves up, trying to take the Drake route into a higher level of visibility.
See,
Drake,
I couldn't. I don't see that.
I could see because Kevin Hart gets a little involved with Phillies with a 76er game
The,
sometimes.
the
Not
thing
as
is
much as
though,
Drake, but
but Kevin Hart, and this was going to be my point. Kevin Hart bleeds Philadelphia,
yes,
and Drake bleeds Toronto.
yes.
I don't, unless a celebrity is already deeply ingrained in an organization, I don't think there's an opportunity here for you to
Mm.
just get in and start faking the funk. Like, this is genuine. These guys have been supporting these teams when they were bad. They've, grown up with these teams. They talk about them all the time. They heavily support them. I don't think it's something that teams are just like, yeah, you come on in. And let's face it, there's only so many. Like, Kevin Hart's the biggest comedian on the planet right now.
Mm-hmm.
Drake is the biggest, one of the biggest musicians on the planet. So there's only so many celebrity sports fanatics on that level that even gets your attention. You know,
Right. I guess what I'm saying, like, definitely you have to be a sports fan, right? But I think that if there is somebody who is a legitimate sports fan of their team, right? s- And suddenly they start to buy those tickets, that seat. And over time, like, they don't force it, but over the course of a season, with the way that the media is, and because if I'm going to tell you, if from game one of the next season, and I'm just using this as an example because it matches up geographically, if from game one of next season, Chance the Rapper starts showing up at every single home Bulls game and starts to be, gradually over the season, just get more and more, visible with it, right? Because he loves Derrick Rose. He does love that. He does love Derrick Rose, and it's always been like a Rose fan. Which, I mean, most of us from the South Side are that way.
if you don't mind, because we
What?
about to start talking about the Chicago Bulls when we ain't
No,
supposed to. And my stomach, I'm getting like a little nauseous. I'm getting that weird nauseous.
But
But
I'm
Chance,
saying,
Chance is a great person to bring up because I don't think Chance, as big as Chance is, and I like Chance the Rapper much more than I like Drake. Um,
Mhm.
I don't think Chance is big enough to register.
Woo, I
He's
don't
just
know.
another. He's just an. You're in Chicago. I don't think he is. He's just another celebrity. There's plenty of big celebrities all the time. Like, you got Jay-Z and Beyonce showing up at this game. Like, nobody cares. Like,
Yeah,
Drake. Drake
I
is
don't think
Drake.
Chance is
Like,
Drake.
that's
He's
the
not
thing.
Drake yet.
That's my point. But I think it only matters when you're at the level of Drake. Like, Kevin Hart, he's opening $100 million movies
Yeah.
twice a year sometimes, right? What's what's the last big thing Chance did? The last song he made. When was that? Whenever it was out. Who knows? Like, he's not an icon. And I think this is only something that
Chance
icons
is
could do.
I think Chance is a little bit bigger than you. I don't think he's Drake, but I think he's a little bigger than what you're giving him credit for. Because Chance changed music in a lot of ways, and from a business standpoint, because Chance is one of the first
Yeah, I
guys to
know.
just
But no,
kind of go
nobody cares about that.
labelless.
But that's
But
something
I
that
don't.
people
I
who are
think you
into it
might
care
not care
about.
about it because you're not a hip hop guy, but a large percentage of the population is, and especially in basketball, where hip hop is the genre or the culture that most connect to
May
the
I
sport.
interject here?
Mhm.
Chance the Rapper's net worth is 33 million. That's my point.
Okay, but I do think that from an actual commercial standpoint, Chance is a
Hold up,
bigger
no.
deal than what you're
J-
saying.
Drake's net worth is 810 million.
I
He's
I
almost worth
I,
$1 billion.
I
And the
get it.
conversations we've had are people who are approaching the $1 billion club. And my entire point is, someone who is not even anywhere near the $100 million club does not get put in the same conversation with someone who is near the $1 billion club.
What
It's a
what
different level. And I
my
think it's people who are closer to that at least half a billion club. Those are the people that are in a position to do what Drake is doing. And those people are so few and far between that it's not something I would be concerned about. I don't think a person on Chance's level is a threat to become somebody like Drake, because mentioning Chance the Rapper is not going to grab national media headlines to the level that Drake is.
No, and I said that I didn't. I don't think that that's the case. What I said was originally is that I could see someone else trying to use this model to big themselves up. So in my original statement, I'm basically acknowledging, yes, that it won't be a person on Drake's level. It could be a person who aspires to raise their level, you know, and they're using this like, oh, So Drake is aligned with Toronto. I'm a, Chicago guy. I'm a Charlotte guy. I'm a whatever guy. I want to try to make myself the Charlotte Hornets version of Drake. I want to make myself the Utah Jazz version of Drake. Not saying that they have to be on the same level as Drake, because hardly anybody associated with hip hop is. I said I wonder would it inspire somebody to try to emulate it, basically.
Yeah, and the reason I don't think so, beyond the fact that I do think you have to cross that line, I would say at least $500 million to be in that special category of iconic people. Even beyond that, when you have that much money, you can do whatever you want. $33 million sounds like a lot of money to us, but when you have an active musician's lifestyle, that's an amount of money you could lose on a bad deal. So you still need to work and have good deals in place to ensure that that's a lifestyle that you can keep into retirement, particularly in hip hop, where you're not promised a career into your late 30s and 40s the way you are in other industries, right? Like technology or
Yeah,
something
I,
like
I
that.
think I think I think
So my
you're
point being is Chance doesn't have the time to be like, I'm just gonna show up and do this now and show up to every Bulls game and blah blah blah. He might literally have better things to do. Drake does whatever he wants is a better thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like I said, I'm not saying that Chance is on Drake's level. I'm not saying he's anywhere near Drake's level, because that's not the case from an overall standpoint. I do think he's a little bit bigger of a deal than you're giving him credit for. I do think he is a person that is still rising. I don't think Drake is still rising. I think Drake is living in a astronomical space right now. I think Chance is a guy who is still rising, but I do think he is a significant deal, and especially with the demographic that this type of behavior would be designed to appeal to. And like I said, it's not about him having the same effect as Drake. That's not my point. My point is, could you be watching Drake doing what he's doing and literally keeping himself as the story in the NBA finals and having this alignment that everybody knows about with the Raptors? Could you be a rapper or a musician and you're sitting someplace and going, hmm, I wonder, could I increase my popularity by making myself the the version, even if it's a lesser version, because obviously it would be. But could I make myself a lesser version of what Drake has become to the Raptors, and would that be good for me? That's
Yeah,
not
I think
not
I
not
think
comparing it
if
to
Chance
Drake
the
and saying you're
rapper
gonna be that.
if Chance the rapper gives the Chicago Bulls head coach a shoulder massage, he could look forward to having his
But see,
season tickets revoked.
that's not my point. I'm not saying he has to do what Drake is doing exactly and have the same impact. I'm saying he could shrink it down and say, man, and Chance is not that kind of guy. I don't see him as doing this. He was just my example that I used. But I'm just saying, a rapper looking at this situation, or a musician looking at the situation, and saying Drake has grown his popularity with this, or Drake has maintained a certain amount of visibility with this. I'm not on Drake's level, but could I raise my level if I tried to do what he's doing in terms of being present every game, being
And I would say
vocal, cheering,
and so
all of this.
while I disagree that that would even be a thing, I think most of the celebrities who go to those games on a regular basis are genuine fans, and that's where it comes from. The cameras were on Drake before Drake attracted the cameras. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Drake was being Drake at a Raptors game over and over and over again. And it just so happened that after pointing the camera at Drake long enough, he became the story. Drake did not engineer that by doing anything other than being Drake. Whereas with other celebrities, it's not beneficial to put the camera on a celebrity for that long. So you can't plan that. It's not reciprocal, you know? If you guys, I mean, there are no stars on your team anymore, but
Who?
like
Who you talking
say
about?
you had the
Why you saying
Chicago
that?
Bulls.
Why you saying that?
Say like imagine if y'all had a good player, right?
Oh my God.
Like who was popular that people cared about. The cameras would benefit much more from focusing on everything that player did and everything the coach did than Chance the Rapper. Like they'd literally be hemorrhaging money every time they're not looking at one of your players. Whereas Kawhi Leonard, as big as he is, and he's huge, especially right now where he's performing, he's not as big as Drake. So this is only an opportunity that presents itself to people who are bigger than the players on their team. And if someone's going to do that at a Chicago Bulls game, I mean, they're not even really on TV anymore. So they're going to be wasting time anyway.
Yeah. Well, I see what you're saying. I still think you're kind of I still think you're kind of missing the point. But but okay. I think you're locked in on 800 million, 36 million. I don't want to talk about it, but it's I'm kind of looking at it a different way. But all right, let's move on to let's talk about some let's actually before we go into non IRL basketball, let's talk about um Derrick Rose.
Oh,
You
let's do
wanted
it.
this. You wanted this. You wanted
I bet.
this.
I bet.
All right. So Derrick Rose made a comment. He's got a book coming out called I'll Show You. Um, and in the book, he talks about the situation that happened with the famous or infamous Jimmy Butler practice with the Timberwolves, where he yelled at, um, management and said, "You need me on this team. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall." He just went all Jack Nicholson, Few Good Men on him, just all nuts, right? So, Rose basically explained everything that went down in that in that practice. He said Jimmy took one shot. He said so people are saying he dominated or whatever. He said he took one shot. So I don't know what people are talking about with that. That's insane. But he did agree with Jimmy by saying that he felt that you got these kids and you give them all this money and you baby them and they haven't really proved anything. Um, and I disagree with Rose making those comments. I don't think that that's something that he should have said. And
I'm
and here's
surprised
and here's
that.
the
What?
reason why I don't,
Okay.
right? Because there was a time when you were the youngest MVP in NBA history and people took shots at you because they said you didn't deserve it. They said you didn't deserve the MVP. You got it because they caught lightning in a bottle, blah, 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 blah. There was all these other players that deserved it more than you did. Your shooting percentages with this, you had this amount of turnovers, all of that. Put yourself in that situation where you were then. And all of the haters and the people that you had criticizing you. And even if you have a point about what you're saying about Carl Anthony Towns, and like he said, I like Carl Anthony Towns, and then this is nothing. He said this is nothing personal to Carl Anthony Towns. He wasn't criticizing Towns as much as he was criticizing the process, right? What was going on? I still feel that he seems to have forgotten that at one point he was that guy, and that I think is wrong. Now, he's still my dog to the end of the wall. He still is. That ain't gonna never, that's not gonna change. Like Derrick Rose got to do something really heinous for him not to be my guy. So, but just because you my guy, don't mean I think you always right. And in this situation, I think he was wrong.
I am I am genuinely shocked that
How?
upon saying the words "I disagree with Rose," you did not literally turn into a pillar of salt.
What?
That you did not literally fall to the ground and have a seizure as
Yeah. One night ain't that said
as
I'm
you.
gonna hang the book up on the wall right next to Malcolm X. You know what? I think that's a good spot right
Yeah.
there. I think it's
Yep.
a beautiful spot. You know what? As a matter of
Highlight that
fact,
page and take it out.
I think I'm gonna get a Derrick Rose poster and put it right there. And then I think I'm gonna get a LeBron poster and put it right there.
Disgusting. Where's the Jimmy poster gonna go? Where you gonna put the Jimmy Butler poster?
uh
I don't want to know what you was looking at just now.
no, I wasn't
But
looking down there. I don't want Jimmy Butler nowhere near.
so So my man Derrick Martell Rose
Hey,
highlight
don't
get,
you ever say Derek's middle name with that level of familiarity, and you don't ride with Pooh like that. Don't you do that.
listen, man.
That is just
Listen.
flat disrespectful.
When someone has enlightened insight, it doesn't matter what they've done in the past. I'm just going to address that astute point of view that they expressed. And what I was saying about the Jimmy Butler situation, and I've said this about other situations before. The player that I actually targeted was Andrew Wiggins, because they gave Andrew Wiggins a big unearned contract. And before Jimmy Butler got there, they didn't make the playoffs and didn't necessarily come particularly close with the on the court product and
Mhm.
looked like something that if they did go to the playoffs, they would get immediately obliterated by whoever was in first place. And the entire time, the Towns and Wiggins were there. Jimmy goes there, and they not only make the playoffs, but they were in third place until Jimmy hurt his knee.
Mhm.
So, and they had a chance to be better than that if he had been healthy. All right. So, on a day to day basis, when you see that the problem with the team is that the young players on your team aren't doing the things to succeed, and you have a contract coming up, and they are not being pushed to do the things to succeed, and then you say, I find this unacceptable because this is not going to be a winning situation. You keep treating these guys like this, they're never going to learn. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm going to quietly go to management and say, hey, I'm not resigning. Do me a favor and get me out of here. Situation ain't for me. And management is going to be like, thanks for playing. Go back and do your job. Then that's when you start acting out. I don't look at it the same way as if you'd been a locker room cancer the entire time. And Derrick Rose is basically saying, I saw the same exact things Jimmy saw. It
You know
wasn't
what?
that Jimmy was a guy who was just some born loser who can't work with anybody. Jimmy brought a winning mentality here. And it's one thing
I
for the
disagree
young
with
player. Let me
that.
just finish the statement. It's one thing for, well, they won. So the thing is, Jimmy won. They started winning when Jimmy got there. He left. They lost, and Philly got better. So literally every time Jimmy's on a team, they make the playoffs. Every time Wiggins is on a team by himself and Towns as a duo, no playoffs. Right. So when Jimmy said y'all need me, apparently that was the case. But that's neither here nor there right now. Point being is Jimmy had ample reason to believe, especially with his history with the head coach, and in the case of this year, Derrick Rose, that his way was the right way and that Towns and Wiggins' way was most definitely the wrong way. And he's saying, even with the head coach on my side, you guys are not going to discipline these people so that they can grow into better people. I'm not with it. Get me out of here. I gave you guys a chance to do it. I did my part. Got you to the playoffs for the first time. I believe it was 14 years. You're not doing your part. He quietly, peacefully asked them to get him out of there.
Huh?
They basically,
What?
no, he did. He did. Before then, this was handled behind closed doors, widely publicized.
Uh-huh.
Then they would not do it. And I don't know if this is Thibodeau's fault. It's widely speculated that Thibodeau was the one who was saying, no, we'll just hold on to Jimmy no
Yeah.
matter what. He'll be fine. That's still an error on management's behalf because here's the thing. If that's Thibodeau's attitude, then your attitude has to be that we're going to give Jimmy what he wants. You're not just going to keep Jimmy kicking and screaming, hating his environment, knowing that it's not going to get better against his will. He's going to resist you. And that's what he did. And that's what we saw after the fact. His display in that practice was not the first thing he said about getting out of there. He tried to do it behind closed doors. They wouldn't acquiesce. And the problem with these players' contracts is they have no other recourse than to use the publicity against the organization. And that's what Jimmy did. And
Okay.
Derrick has had Jimmy's back and gave us the truth and showed us the light and said Books was right. And for Derrick Martell Pooh Rose, I'm so grateful to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Derrick.
So let me allow me to clarify this once again, which I've done this before, but we're gonna do it again. I never ever said that what Jimmy said wasn't right. Right? I never said that Andrew Wiggins wasn't was a complete basketball player and he doesn't need to play better defense. That Kyle Anthony Towns didn't need to play better defense. I didn't say any of that stuff. My problem with Jimmy from the beginning was throwing his teammates under the bus. He went to management, as you said, well, this is what the report is. He went to management and he said, I would like to be traded. Okay. So they weren't moving fast enough, or they told him they denied his trade request. So now his his way of getting out of the situation is to now say, okay, so management isn't responding to me. Now I'm going to start pointing a gun at guys who have nothing to do with making the decision that I want to be made. They're not decision makers in this situation, but I'm going to try to create a big enough stink here where I'm going to force them into it, even if that means kind of backstabbing some of my teammates, because Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, or whatever, they weren't going anywhere talking about Jimmy, and they never did. As a matter of fact, I got an opportunity to sit with Karl Anthony Towns and interview him while this was happening. Me and both of my sons went to Minnesota for a 2K event. Karl Anthony Towns, it was 2K Playgrounds. I sat down there and I asked him about this, right? And in every other interview that you saw of him, Karl Anthony Towns always took the high road,
Yeah.
even while Jimmy
Yeah.
was throwing him under the bus.
He's
And
a
my
smart
my
kid with nothing to gain from
he's a he's
responding
a
to Jimmy.
he's a smart kid who has a who has a personality that I would much more prefer to deal with than somebody like Jimmy Butler, whether we were on a team or at the freaking movies. It doesn't matter, right?
Let me
The,
see Carl Towns in 6 years on a contract year.
but I still don't think Karl Anthony Towns becomes a guy that throws guys under the bus. I just don't think that's part of the way he does things. Jimmy is that guy. He's that kind of guy. He just is. He's just that kind. Some people have that type of thing in their personality. Some people don't.
So I
From what we've
so here's the
seen.
thing that I think.
Hold on.
Okay,
Let
go
me
ahead, go
finish.
ahead.
For what we've seen from Jimmy, this is the type of dude that he is. This is what he does. I have never criticized Jimmy Butler's game. Never. I have never done it. Jimmy worked his butt off to get to where he is. Jimmy is an athletic guy, but his arms are short. It wasn't a great shooter. It wasn't a really good ball handler when he got to the league, but he has compensated for the lack of arm length to become an elite level defender. He is a fantastic scorer from several different situations, whether it's post up game, off the drive. He's become a much better outside shooter. Jimmy is a dog. But Jimmy is a type of dude that devoured, and I do think he's getting out of it though, because this last 2-3 months, as well as in the playoffs with Philly, I thought that the way he handled himself and the way he handled things was exemplary. I said that on Twitter. I think I said that on a previous show around the time when 76ers were still active, alive in the playoffs. So I saw a different Jimmy Butler later this season and in the postseason, but that particular act with Minnesota, I thought is where I had the problem. You don't throw your teammates under the bus just to try to get management to do something. I disagree with that approach. And that's really just been it. That's it. People can say Cat is soft. People can say Wiggins doesn't play defense. He doesn't care. All of that is probably true to a degree, right? But Jimmy coming out and coming at those guys like that because he's trying to force a trade, I just can't respect that. I just can't respect that. I just can't respect that. That's just me. I have never I played on several teams, obviously not professional teams, but I've been on teams, and I've been on teams with people who I didn't think were trying as hard as me or whatever. I've been on teams because effort has never been my problem. If I'm playing anything, I am playing to win. We could be playing marbles. I'm trying to roll my balls farther than you roll your balls. You know what I'm saying? But I played with people who wasn't doing it, but I never resorted to that kind of a thing. You know what I mean? I never did.
And
I
and my
played
my
behind
argument.
people. I played behind people who I thought weren't as good.
And here's the thing. I've seen a lot of really competitive all who people who are also really successful at what they do. Like literally tops in the world at what they do. And my issue with you with Jimmy is that you're saying Jimmy's style doesn't work. And
Does
I'm
his
saying
Yeah,
that his
I don't think his
personality type, you
style
said
works
can't,
for a
it
winning
can't win.
environment.
You can't win it. It can't be in a winning environment, despite the fact that, you know, he always makes the playoffs. So, and he's always doing his part. And the reason that his
I said
teams lose,
winning championships.
I understand you saying winning championships, but he's never been on a team that underachieved, in my estimation. So it didn't seem like his attitude was the reason his teams lost. It's usually either talent or health was the reason his teams lost. Those Bulls looked like they were going to beat Boston, and then Rondo got hurt. They really needed him. Philadelphia had a much better chance against Toronto if Joel Embiid wasn't hobbling, right? So I don't see any evidence that Jimmy's. I think that's a personal prejudice that you have because you don't like Jimmy's way, and I think that's totally okay that you don't like Jimmy's way. But I'm saying when it comes to competition, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, and when you're trying to be excellent, sometimes you don't vibe with people who aren't excellent at what they do, or at least trying to be excellent. And sometimes that filtration system is ugly. It just is. Sometimes when somebody sucks, you just go up to their face and say, "You suck," and you're a bad person because of it. And if you show up here every day sucking like that, it's gonna be the worst time of your life. I'm gonna be the worst person you ever knew because everything you hate about yourself that you really believe when you wake up in the morning, it's gonna be true, reflected in me every time you come up here. And I don't think you could change. And you have two options: change or leave, because this right here is gonna be hell. And for a lot of people, that's how they get all the scrubby people out of their life, and they wind up around people who are like them. And it's not always fun. And it's not always kumbaya. It's not always a great story of sportsmanship and camaraderie. Sometimes it's just a bunch of semi-evil, psychopathic, driven people who might not be bad people. But when it comes to this, if you ain't with it, you don't want to be about it with them at all. And you need to know that. But they win. They succeed. And so your contention that Jimmy Butler can't be successful, I feel like is based off of a prejudice, not any real evidence. If Jimmy Butler, like I said with DeMarcus Cousins, I don't have a personal problem with DeMarcus. His antics on the court, I've seen a lot of emotional players. It doesn't bother me. I think he needs to tighten it up. And yeah, he could get in better shape. My issue with DeMarcus is his teams always seem worse when he plays. Just is. I would have to break down every minute of his life to see why in the NBA it just seems like get him out of here and we'll be better. But that just seems to be the case. It almost reminds me of Melo to a degree. Well, Melo's this great player, but very often it seems like if you just got Melo out of there for a person who was a little worse but played better D and moved the ball more, your team would just be better for some reason. And it's not Melo's fault. He's not a bad guy. He's a good guy, but he's just kind of a loser. And at least as an NBA player, I don't think that's. I think Jimmy's literally the opposite. He's kind of a jerk. But as an NBA player, I don't think he's a loser. And I don't think there's any evidence to show that. I think you get him in the right environment and he totally works just fine. I've seen a lot of guys like Jimmy Butler work. They just usually have either a little more talent or a little less talent. So you either don't pay attention or you excuse it. Oh, it's okay when so and so does it because blah, blah, blah. But then
Yeah,
once they get that championship, you can't say nothing about them. And you just never talk about them anymore. Not you personally, but that's how people treat the
no, no,
conversation.
no, I feel you. I feel my stance on Jimmy is that I don't think Jimmy will ever be the best player on a championship team. He will not be, and that's where I've always drawn the line with Jimmy. I don't even think he'll be the second best player on a championship team. I just think unless he plays and goes about his business the way he did in the postseason with Philly, because he had to see some things, especially with Ben Simmons, that bothered him. He had to. And here's the thing. My point is I'm not saying that you don't approach these guys. See, the scenario and the example that you just gave was him going to those people and saying, dude, you not what you doing? This is not enough. You are not a winner. You're not playing like a winner. That's totally different. That's totally different. But when you go talking to the media and you
But
go
isn't
into
that what he did with the practice though? Like he was right in their faces,
yeah,
literally,
but but
literally
but
beating them in
but
the
the thing of
practice.
it was is that the people available, the practice is fine. The interview after the practice was where it got to me to the point like, okay, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? If this happened in practice and that's where it was supposed to stay, then why are you doing the interview with Rachel? And you're talking about it and you're adding specifics to it. And now you're validating this fact that you went after Carl Anthony Towns. You went after Andrew Wiggins. To me, at that point, that's when it starts to become self-serving. And it's not about trying to make them better. It's not about trying to make the team better. It's about literally, I want to get out of here and I'm about to cut a fool.
Oh, I
I'm
agree
about
with
to
you.
cut a
I think
complete
that was
fool.
the case, and the thing that I say about that is that's after a year and a playoff season of him trying to make it work without a Pete.
But
It'd be one thing if he jumped in there day one and was just like, "Oh, these guys are soft. I'm going to trash them all year. Get me out of here." He was a model teammate publicly for a year and the playoffs.
yeah, it's just it's a different philosophy for me. I just don't.
That's my point. I think it is a different philosophy for
Yeah.
you, and
Because
I think
and like 1989 is talking about what LeBron did. What LeBron did was wrong. Coming into the getting going into the media, criticize, like, all players hate this, bro. They all hate this. Nobody likes, and it doesn't. It never fixes anything. It never fixes anything.
well, it
I've
got
never.
Jimmy to Philly, so it
It
fixed
got
something for
Jimmy.
him.
It got Jimmy to Philly, but he didn't win there either.
Again, Toronto's a better team than Philly. They were better all year. Philly didn't have the shooting. Like so, when you say, and that's my thing right there. Like you take in Jimmy's philosophy that you don't agree with. And I think it's fine that you don't agree with. I'm not even saying it's the optimal philosophy. Do I think Jimmy could be better? Yeah. Do I think that he needs to be better to win a championship and be the second or third best player on the championship team? No. He just needs to be in the right environment where he doesn't act out in that way. And if and when he does, the guys are able to take it, be like, shut up, Jimmy. And they go about their business and he respects them. So, a few days later, he going to be like, sorry about Tuesday in his own way. And it'll be fine. And this happens on championship teams all the time. That's my
Yes.
point.
But you
And so,
change it
real quick,
when you have to apologize for what you did in the
but
media and not what you said behind closed doors.
when you say, but Philly lost two, as in Philly didn't win a championship, that makes it seem like Jimmy's attitude had something to do with that. And we've said on the show a billion times, Ben Simmons refusing to get even a grade school level of jump shot, Philly not having enough shooting coming off of their bench, Philly getting rid of Markelle Fultz and not replacing him with an adequate backup point guard, that and Joel Embiid being hobbled, in addition to the fact that Toronto's a genuinely very good team and Kawhi Leonard is better than everybody on Philly, that's why they lost. It wasn't Jimmy's attitude.
No, I know
So,
I didn't. I
but
wasn't.
so
I
you
wasn't.
can't. So,
Yeah.
so then you can't associate it. You can't be like Jimmy got a bad
No,
attitude. Well,
no, no,
and
no.
I
I
think he's
wasn't.
never going to win. Well, that's why he didn't win. He didn't win in Philly. When you say he didn't win in Philly after talking about his attitude, it makes them associated. It's not associated. Philly's
No,
not as good as Toronto.
I don't agree with that. It doesn't associate it. I said we were talking about him getting into a better situation. And yeah, okay, you got to the playoffs, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to win a championship. So yeah, you got into a temporarily a better situation because you got out of Minnesota a year early. Um, when you were headed for free agency anyway at the end of the season. So you were trying to get into a situation because here's the thing, at the end of the season you could have gone wherever you wanted to go anyway. So it does matter where you landed because you were looking for some immediate gratification because you are it wasn't as if you got your way out of a team that you were signed to play with for 2 to 3 more seasons. You were going to leave at the end of the season anyway, but you got so to the point, you got so to where you were you couldn't even do the last 3 months. You wanted out now because you wanted to land someplace where you thought you had a chance to win now, win a championship now. Because he didn't just go run the Philly so he could have a playoff run. He ran the Philly so he could win a championship, and he didn't win a championship. I'm not saying they didn't win because of Jimmy. Jimmy played great in the postseason, and he also behaved great in a way that is conducive to keeping your teammates involved and keeping your teammates on your side. My whole point, as I said, is not about what he said. It's about when he said it and who he said it to. There's a
And
lot of things that you can say to family, to teammates, that if you just said it to them, it would be permissible. But when you start going to tell other people, is when you break a bond. And that to me is the same regardless. Because we can't talk about loyalty and all this different kind of stuff in one breath and then want to embrace the business side of it in another. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're like, oh, well, this is business. He trying to get what he trying to get. He got to get what he got
well,
to get. He got to
I
win.
think loyalty is reciprocal. And a lot of times when you have a teammate or a family situation, that bond is broken behind the scenes long before, and then you see the results of it long after. And the indication seemed to be that Jimmy Butler, after a year with those guys, decided that that bond was no longer in place and peacefully asked for a resolution. Didn't get it and said, if you won't bring peace, I'll bring war. And then he did. I understand that you disagree with that, but at the times that we were having those conversations, you made it sound like wherever Jimmy went, that would be the issue. And that I don't think that's the case, and that has proven to not be the case, and that seems to be your thinking on it now.
Yeah,
And so, and
I
Derek
think as
Martell
long
Rose
as he's
agrees with both of us here.
no, yeah, I think as long as he is, if he continues to throw guys under the bus in the media, yeah, it will be detrimental to winning the championship. That's all. That's it. Just that's my point. It
Yeah, but
makes
he's not doing that on teams that he's staying on. He's doing that on teams he's trying to get out of.
but at some point, it's like if it doesn't work out, that's what he does. That's what he goes to. That's his go-to move. That's his go-to move. The same way as Kobe's the turnaround jump shot in the post is Kobe and Mike's go-to move. This is his go-to move when things get tight. Start crapping on people, on my teammates in the media. He did it in Chicago. He did it in Minnesota. It, he, Probably the only reason he didn't do it in Philly is because all eyes are on you and your behavior right now, and it's a contract year. So the worst thing that you could do is further muddy your reputation as a potential locker room cancer. So I don't know, man. I just like I said, that's just to me a no. That's just a
Well,
no.
in closing, I think this seems like an excellent book from Pooh Rose. I love
I'm excited to see it and read it.
I love what he wrote so far, and I think we've proven without a shadow of a doubt that you have an unreasonable bias against Jimmy Butler because he hurt you, and that's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I give Jimmy Butler all credit that is due, but he get that smoke too.
so what do we have next?
The last thing we have is NBA 2K20 MyLeague. All right, we're gonna
Oh, okay.
talk about that. And but I want to start this off by saying that I don't know how many people saw this, but my man Razor, who is the guy that I worked with to do the Ultimate Legends roster, he did all those faces, the PC mods. 2K hired him, and so he is doing like Legends faces for 2K20. And I am, dude, I am so proud of that dude, man. Just
And I was saying, as much as they're probably going to give him a decent wage, that's a
mhm.
bigger win for 2K than it is for Razer
Yeah,
because he is going to help them a lot.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
congrats to Razer. He's excellent at what he does from one artist to another. I really like his work, and I'm glad that I'll be, playing with his work
yeah.
next year or the year after, or whenever he was able to start integrating that stuff.
Yeah, I think that you definitely will everybody probably will be seeing it because I would assume that it's going to affect more than one mode. I would assume. I know we're
Hmm.
talking about my league, but I would assume that if he does
My
something
team, I
for,
think it would be the
yeah, for
yeah.
legends, they would definitely see it for I mean, because I don't know, we saw like the Isaiah Thomas they got look like an Ewok. So
I will not besmirch,
yeah,
slander, or criticize other artists here.
I
I try
understand. I understand.
professional courtesy. I try to let it
I
go.
understand.
And here's my
I,
philosophy.
I did a
It's not me
whole
glad handing. My issue is this: as a professional, I can take your favorite work and
mhm,
make you like it less.
mhm.
So as an overall, I don't want to cost anybody a customer
Oh yeah.
just because I'm talking about their stuff, unless me talking about their stuff is helping someone else. If
Well.
if critique is part of education,
Hmm.
then I'll get into it. But if it's just like my opinion, I keep my opinion to myself. I don't really need to talk about, where other artists have fallen short. It
Well,
happens.
I kind of put it like this. Uh, Me talking about Isaiah Thomas looking like an Ewok is the equivalent of you talking about Terrence Ferguson being a scrub.
100%. 100%. 100%. It's
So
okay.
it's just it is, it looked like Ewok. It wasn't good. I got a whole YouTube series taking a look at
Which I
renders in
love.
2K that are not that good. You know,
Before I met this man, before you showed up on the Sim Hangout, I had already watched hours of you doing that. Oh, I wish I could remember. I think it was Track the Trailer that you was getting on. I'm not sure. Nah, it
no,
wasn't Track the
it
Trailer.
was, it was
It was
probably
Anthony
Dwight,
Bennett. It might have been Anthony Bennett. It was
Anthony
somebody.
Tolliver. Might have been Anthony
It was
Tolliver.
somebody really dark skinned, and they had like white lips, and you was just going
Yeah,
in.
yeah, it's a
They
lot
had
of
like ashy lips or something like
It's a
that, and
lot
oh,
of them.
you was cutting the
It's
fool,
bad
man.
stuff.
It was
It's
so
bad.
good.
And the Oscar Robertson that the 2K uses
It
now,
wasn't Legends. It was a normal roster.
yeah, it's just
But
bad.
my point is, guys, if you are watching the show, if you're a fan of Zeke, go into the archives. If you just need a laugh, just watch him trash the artwork on 2K's faces. I will not personally trash somebody else's
No,
artwork.
he didn't say that.
He said, back when you were cussing. have
Oh
you
my
have you
god.
cleaned it up? Have you cleaned it up in your old age, Ryan?
I have not cursed on a YouTube video in probably 7 years.
Wow.
And and I have only in my least controlled moments have I used profanity in regular life
Okay.
in the last maybe 7 years or so.
Well, look at you.
So, not it ain't me, it's him. So
Yeah,
so yeah, but it's funny when people say that. My kids crack me up sometimes. I tried to get all of those videos off. Because I only want stuff on the channel that represents who I am today. But my kids were looking back at one of my videos and they were laughing on their own. And they were like, "Yeah, Dad, you said some stuff about something." And then I was like, "Oh, really? You saw that?" And they were like, "It's okay. It's before you found yourself." So I thought that was pretty funny.
That's
But
good stuff.
yeah,
All right,
but
my
yeah,
league, top five
yes.
fixes.
Um, One of the biggest things you can't really talk about my league without talking about roster creation because it's a big
Hmm.
part of it because everything's about customization in the mode. And there's still some restrictions to the way that you can create players. You cannot add tattoos to offline creative players.
Hmm.
So if you want to create a player with tattoos, you can't. So
That's huge.
if I wanted to create Rodman, he's in the game, but if I wanted to create him, I'd have to go Detroit Piston era Rodman before all the tats, and it's just, it just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense that that's not there. I've actually asked why it isn't there, and I was told that the layering for that would increase the total size of the game, and they're
Mm.
already at a place where they're near capacity on
Yeah,
that. So yeah, yeah, well, we'll see.
yeah. So my number one thing is gameplay.
Mhm,
I feel like the 5v5 is lagging behind. The 5v5 with AI involved
mhm,
overall as a gameplay mode is lagging behind the other gameplay modes. And even though Triple Threat and Park and Pro Am don't benefit from all of the great work that like Zara does offensively, the flip side is it doesn't suffer from all of the problems on defense. The
mhm,
way, and if you played my league or even my team, I'm sure you understand this. You're not setting up your defensive settings necessarily strategically. You're kind of herding cats. When you first play the game on default, the AI starts
Mm.
doing stuff that you're like, why did you do that? Why did you
Yes.
run away from that
Yeah.
shooter?
Yeah.
Why are you standing over here? And then
Yeah.
you go through the settings and you find what it is, and then you're fixing it, and you're just trying to keep them from not doing stuff. And my problem with that has always been, and I will talk to Zara about this and really try to get into the nuts and bolts of it. But for the sake of this discussion, I don't see the AI doing that, right? I don't see that. Like if I'm playing the game, the AI doesn't seem to just randomly run away from my shooters, or that the way they play the pick and roll seems to be just generally stronger. So like in takeover mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
In I know my career isn't exactly the same thing, but you temporarily get to control your AI defender. You have no settings that you can put on there, right? So you're playing default AI controlled players. When they play the pick and roll, they go all the way under the basket
Mm-hmm.
and wait sometimes. They back way off as if they just have a bad default setting.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I'm in takeover mode, I can hedge the pick and roll properly and shut it down consistently, particularly if I have a good defender on my team who plays center or power forward. So it seems like overall the default sliders need to be better from a gameplay standpoint. And I know we're going to do a gameplay video, so I'm not going to get specific with this. That's just the overall example I think that makes the gameplay of my team worse. I mean, my league, I'm sorry. The gameplay of my league worse than Pro Am, Park, and Triple Threat,
Mm-hmm.
where Triple Threat and Park benefit from having more space. So even though it's much more arcadey, it's consistent
Mm-hmm.
and it's reliable because the computer's not controlling the other people. And in Triple Threat, is only two other people and there's more space, right? So that's my number one thing is the gameplay. I would love for my league to feel as good playing as the rest of the game does.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the what you and I even see this in head to head games like online, like playing my team or playing Play Now online, which is essentially the same engine that you would be playing on, the same AI type settings or whatever that you be playing on my league, except for you're just two different people are controlling the game or the teams. But I do find that when I have to go into my defensive settings, not to necessarily play a certain type of style, but to try to minimize the bad habits that are embedded into the defensive AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a problem. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like you already know that this game has pretty much overpowered limitless range ability and 3-point shooting in a lot of ways. So why is it that I have to almost go into some sort of press in order to get my players to pick up shooters quicker past half court?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I shouldn't have to like rig almost the settings in order to get that to happen. And I noticed that you have to do that, like especially in my team, which is a arcadey mode, just anyway. It's kind of over the top in a lot of ways anyway. But especially in my team, it's very difficult to play a base defense and to adequately deal with shooters.
Mm-hmm.
I can hit the directional pad right and hit L1 and tell everybody to stay at home on shooters, but they still don't. They still don't, because in my team, when you're playing my team, especially once you start getting up in levels and everybody that you're playing is pink diamonds and galaxy opals and diamonds at
Mm-hmm.
least, you gotta stay home on every shooter. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
hardly nobody on the floor that you can leave, right? Nobody, right? So when I tell the game to stay home and they don't do that,
Right. Right.
that is it breaks it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is um one of my biggest problems in regards to what you're saying. Now, another thing that I would love to see in my league is I want to see them when my league was originally was first introduced, or it might have been the associate. No, I think it was my league. I had a face-to-face interview. It's still one of my favorite interviews that I ever did. It's still, I believe, it's still on my channel. Had a face-to-face interview with Eric Benish. Eric Benish is the man at 2K in regards to the franchise modes, and he even worked with my league this year. I mean, my team this year, and he introduced my league to me as the ultimate sandbox mode. That was the term he used when he talked to me about it, and it has been that. It make no mistake, my league is the best franchise mode available for any sports video game franchise there is. There's nobody that does it as good, right? Doesn't mean it's perfect, which is what we're talking about now, but I want to make that statement that it is the best one out there. But there are some gaps there from a customization standpoint that still need to be addressed. I don't see why I cannot change it to college rules. I would love to be able to, because you don't have a college basketball game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to change it to college rules, even because you can already expand the league out to 36 teams, right? It would be really awesome if you could expand it out to 64 created teams, which they already allow you to do anyway, um, and or however you need to do it, to expand it out to actually deliver a college basketball experience. I think that would be really awesome. I think there's a thing where you can get a rule change over the course of your my league where the shot clock can change. It can go up or come. There's one thing that'll happen where they'll say the owners voted and now the shot clock is now 20 seconds and not 24 seconds. And then there's another thing that can happen is that, well, the shot clock is now 30 seconds, I believe. So stuff like that, I think would be an awesome addition to to my league. I would love to see that added.
Awesome. So this is kind of more of a question. What do you think of the progression of my league in terms of how you're rewarded for accomplishing goals and how the goals are set before you?
I think that there, and I think we talked about this before, but I think that there can be a lot more done with the mode that will allow you to kind of overlap with some of the other modes, right? I think, and I've mentioned this in several wish lists, that there should be a significant VC payout for winning a championship in my league.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Significant. I think there should be a significant payout for user controlling a team that has the MVP on it. You
And
know,
can I add to that?
hmm
I think that they should give like the uniforms that you customize and create in that mode should be available in my team. Should be available to your my career character.
they are
Your
available in my team.
Okay, they should be like the warm ups and all that stuff like that because you get like this championship warm up when you win a championship in my career.
Mm,
Like the jacket,
okay.
like the white jacket with the finals and all that on it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you do that in my league, you should be able to transfer that over to your
hmm
my career character. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you have a reason, so you don't feel like you're completely abandoning one mode when we play it. So I agree with the integration. That's just one of the things that I'd like to see come back the other way. So I could
Yeah.
feel like I'm working on my character a little bit when I'm
hmm
playing my league. Not the same reward, obviously, for playing the character, but not that I'm back to square one if I play 3 weeks of my league, like my character is just 3 weeks older and that's it.
Yeah. I also think that they could use this is something that I've been asking for man for several different sports video games. And it's crazy that we haven't seen it yet. Maybe we'll see it on the next generation of consoles, but I would love to see a weekly wrap up show,
Mm-hmm.
and group in with that an actual good halftime show with coherent um with a coherent highlight situation. And I know it can be done because I'm going to tell you who does it great, right? They don't do it as well as 2K5 NFL 2K5 did it,
Which
but
was the gold standard.
which is the gold standard for a halftime show. But NBA Live's halftime show is really good. Like I don't really skip it
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
it's organized, it's direct, and the stuff that's on the screen is relevant to what's being said. So it does serve as a bit of a recap to what happened. The NBA 2K halftime show is half the time what they're showing doesn't even match what Shaq or whoever is talking about. It's like they're saying something like they're like, and Shaq is like, yeah, and they're down because they're not rebounding. And all of the highlights that are on the screen are of the team that is down making shots. and you're like, wait, what? Like this ain't even this what like so then you just button through because you just at this point I'm checked out because
Mm-hmm.
it's ridiculous. So I really think that they really need a good halftime show. But the weekly
Mm-hmm.
wrap up show is something that man, dude, if at the end of the week they pulled up something and they were like, and they just showed Kenny, Ernie, and Shaq in the studio, and they're talking about, hey, this is the NBA Player of the Week. This guy, this team's on a 5 game winning streak, and then if you could splice in some highlights in there as well, that shows some different stuff, and then you start to deal with some storyline stuff. So and so's contract is coming up, or this person's injury. We're all of this is about immersion, and if
Yes.
you play franchise mode, that's your thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That see non-franchise mode people, this doesn't this don't stimulate you because that's not why you play. And I'm not putting that down because we all play for different reasons, you know. But when you play a franchise mode, you play it for the immersion so that you can go into your own sports world. And I think that it is the responsibility of the developer to augment that world as much as possible. Bring these things, elements in that totally suck you in. And I think if they did that, you might make some franchise mode fans that aren't yet because they might get exposed to something. Maybe they started playing it because yes, there's 100,000 VC payout for winning the championship. Maybe that is why they started playing it. But they hit that play of the week or that weekend weekly wrap up show, and they just caught it for a second. They were like, "Oh, this is kind of dope," you know. And then now you've made somebody that's a fan. So I really think that that's something that's missing.
So that's great. And this is a little bit involved with the immersion thing. So in a franchise mode, you can take on the identity. And I'm talking kind of old school, like the way we used to play it. You're either thinking as a player, you're thinking overall as the team, you're thinking as the coach, or you're thinking as the owner. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're shifting between one or the other. What my career did was it took the player and it branched it way off
Mm-hmm.
to the side and said, if you want to think like the player, here's the mode for you. And through various games, it's done a pretty good job of fulfilling that fantasy. And now career mode is like the number one thing you look for in a sports game as far as single player goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like as a coach, I can't really live that experience of coaching young players, having short term, long term goals, scouting, drafting, possibly getting fired, going to a new team, earning more money, and getting those rewards. I don't feel like that aspect is done. Honestly, I felt that was more of the case in the old college games
Mm-hmm.
than it
Oh,
is
absolutely.
in the modern NBA games, right? So C hoops like 2K8, that's what I felt was happening. And I had both an attachment to the kids I recruited and sent off to 2K um 8 or 9
Was it? Yeah,
for the
eight,
draft
eight, eight,
class,
eight. Yeah.
2K8 for the draft class, and I felt a responsibility to move from a lower school to a higher school. So I would really love to feel like I can be the next Nick Nurse. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And work my way from G League to NBA team. But when you get to the NBA team, it's really mostly a my league experience without necessarily getting the feedback loop that you would from the owner thing. So the stadium stuff and, all the ticket sale information. Maybe that'd be something that's like a pressure thing in terms of we have to draft somebody exciting or trade for somebody exciting because we got to put butts in the seats or whatever. But just that whole journey
Mm-hmm.
of feeling like I'm genuinely coaching the team, but that's not all I'm doing. I'm not just watching them play. I'm playing it and I'm curating the whole experience, or I'm simming it sometimes when I want to, and I'm doing everything else. But the feedback loop is controlled by the coaching role. The gameplay loop is still overall my league. That's what I would like to see, is to have the coaching feedback loop role get some shine the way my GM has its own thing, and I think that still needs some work. Um, because there's a lot of text in that. There's just a lot of text,
Yeah.
and and it's too many jokes. I think 2K as a game overall is trying too hard to be funny.
Yeah.
Uh, and they need to chill that out a little bit and go more towards the natural sports rewards,
Hmm.
the natural storylines that occur when you join a team and you have a role to fill and goals to achieve and you accomplish those goals and you get an upgrade and you get new goals. That's what it needs to be more revolved around, because when we see the bare bones games, I find the bare bones games to be more fun. Like UFC is a bare bones career mode, but it's more fun, right? In certain ways. In fact, even Madden, just like being a running back or something in Madden, there's a reward there that
Hmm.
I don't get from 2K because I'm watching too many cutscenes with cute jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Madden did have a good idea that they kind of abandoned a little bit, or at least abandoned developing it with the different like, so you can play as an owner, a coach, or a player, right?
Yes.
But what I think that they didn't do was they didn't distinguish or differentiate those roles enough, and they didn't uh, build in these role specific goals enough for all three to make it
Hmm.
where they were truly individual experiences that you may want to play all separately. So okay, because I had a series on YouTube a few years ago. I don't even remember which version Madden it was, but it was called Player Coach Owner. So I played through
Where
an
you,
entire season where
yeah.
one team I picked one player to play for, and then I picked another team that I said I would only coach. So I'm only going to call the plays or whatever. And then I had another one where I was the owner, where uh, I did everything. You know, I played for the whole team, whatever. So that was kind of, so I created that myself, that different thing. But it would have been better if they had have had like these actual parameters to the way that they played, and was like, okay, as a player, you're in straight player lock. You don't have any decisions about anything that you can make, but here are your goals, right? You can get to a point where you get to where you become lay GM like LeBron, and they start asking your opinion for whatever if you get to that point. But there are all of these steps and benchmarks and goals to get there. Um,
And
then
real quick,
that's mm-hmm,
you know what's really crazy about that is if you did that in my career,
mm-hmm,
your career earnings would allow you to take that character into ownership, and it
yes.
would give you a reason to want to negotiate for more money.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yep. And then so then I can play the coach role. I can like, okay, well, when I coach, um, I don't have access to this or that. Like you can have the option though, do you want to play with control all of your players or whatever? Or it's all these different ways that you can approach this and say, all right, this is what you have as a coach. And then you have these different goals as that. Maybe you
Hmm.
start off as an assistant coach. Maybe you start off as as a what I forget what Eric Spoelstra's occupation was before he got promoted, but it was something like video tech or
Video
something,
coordinator or something
video
like that.
coordinator, something like
Yeah.
that. So you start off at these lesser roles, but they find a way to make them fun. They find a way to make them engaging and appealing, and then there's a reward for each one of these things, and there's steps, and you keep moving up because you have to give people something to look forward to. And then, of course, if you are an owner, if you decide to play it as an owner, then now you have full control over everything. You do whatever you want, everything, and
This
it's
is why I was
relative
saying,
too.
if it, like, imagine you're coaching in the G League
Hmm.
and you get promoted to coach, some expansion team or some struggling franchise or whatever, and you know from your coaching experience with the G League team that this one guy is actually the guy that you used to
Hmm.
get your record up. So you bring him in and he's your sixth man. He's
Yeah.
actually a 83 in the league and stuff like that, and you bring it all over. And I think the main thing, and we're on the same page here, I think the main thing
Hmm.
with that stuff is to reward me according to the role, but on the option screen I get the freedom to do most of the mode,
Hmm.
so that the player is having the kind of fun that they want, but the fantasy is being rewarded according to player, coach, GM, owner, or what have you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it definitely can be that. Here's the this is my last one. Well, I got more than this, but this is the last one I'll give because this is the longest show in the history of life. Um, but um, I would love. Do you remember back in the day, and it still happens, right? But remember when you would play a campaign mode, a single player campaign mode, right? And at the end of the mode, the whole, like we would call it, some people would call it flipping the game. Some people would call it I beat the game, whatever, right? I beat the whatever they call it. But the payoff for beating the game was the cinema screen or whatever the long story thing that they showed you. And you said, because usually that was like the best graphics that you were going to see in the game because they poured all of the art resources into that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the payoff, right? Outside of the sense of accomplishment. I would love to see it that in if you were playing like 2K my career, I mean 2K my league, if at the end of the season the game literally put together a video compilation, like a little short video yearbook that was like your best plays, because the
Uh-huh.
game already saves, like Madden saves highlights, right? And you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
save a series of highlights that you can store in the
They give you
cloud,
like a
or
tribute video.
a tribute video that was put together in a way. It would have to be kind of template based the way they would put it together, but everybody's would still be unique because it's actual video from and actual things that happened in your season, right?
You know, it's funny. That's a cool idea, and I'm so much more shallow than you. I want. I just want skins, man. I want a closet full of like Armani and Tom Ford suits that I could actually put on my coach and see him on the sideline and see his shoes.
That would be
Like
dope though.
I want him to have designer
No,
glasses the
that
same
would
way
be
you
dope.
have like a closet for my career. I want
That
that's what
would
I
be
want.
dope.
You know what I'm saying? I want to get a better coaching contract just so I can spend VC on more coaching shoes and be looking
No,
fly on the
I actually
sideline.
think that's really dope. You know, like if you're a coach, and so I can start dressing better. I can, or I can
Yeah.
start dressing horrible if that's my thing. You know what I mean? I can start wearing Craig Sager suits, rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? I can start rocking it like that if I wanted to, you know, whatever you want to do. But yeah, you know, I think, man, like if your tribute video was shareable,
Yeah, 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 for sure, for
oh
sure.
my God, bro! Like you win the championship with the Raptors, and you share a video, and then it had that would be like bro Matt says, with a voiceover at the end, and and you know, somebody like with a John Facenda's type voice is like, and this had to be the key moment of the season.
Yeah,
So
you get
the
to
literally
yeah.
there's some sort of algorithm that determines what they say was your key moment of your season,
Mhm.
and they show that. Then and he like through adversity, and then you show a part where there was an injury, an injury to a player rated 85 or higher. You know, this is how you have to do it. Or you say, or maybe you had a part of your season where you were on a losing streak, or you had a part of your season where you were down 3-0 in a playoff series, but you came back and won, you know, through adversity, and then you show a little clip. Dude, that would be the most banana thing ever. If you can't play through a my league season to get that treat, then you just don't want, you ain't interested at all.
Yeah.
You ain't interested at all. So as soon as somebody hires me to oversee their franchise mode, then we'll see what happens.
Dude, I have so many ideas that
Yeah,
I won't say on the air because
man,
I ain't giving them away for free.
man, I swear that that is the one job that I would consider
Like
if I didn't
overall,
consider
everything else if you
walking
wasn't
away. If I didn't consider walking away from writing entirely, I would
yeah,
definitely
to
decrease
do
it.
a
But
franchise mode.
if I
Yeah.
could be the person who oversees a franchise mode, there ain't really nothing else professionally in this world that I would like to do more.
Yeah. Now, I feel you. You got some good ideas, man.
Yeah.
Unlike the other stuff where you got these wacky, crazy ideas, these are good.
Yeah. Well,
So, is that our show? Are we ready
that
for
is
answers,
that I
bro?
think that's it. I think that's it. I think that's it today. We have done all we can do. You know, we have done all we can do. So
Yo, thank you to everyone for rocking with us this long. And we are about to get to y'all questions.
yeah. No, I said we're not gonna do Ask Us Bro.
Oh, we done.
No, no, we did a lot.
This was long. This was long. All
This was
right,
a lot. Yeah, yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
mind. Yeah,
So
that's our fault, and
I
that's not y'all's. We'll
yeah,
see
yeah,
y'all next
it
week.
definitely is our fault. It definitely is our fault. So I do appreciate everybody watching as always. Uh, God bless and peace.